Chapter 2943. Chao Beidou and Yun Tianming nodded in unison. Let's go. Yuan Changtian teleported into the distance. Elder Yuan, where are we going? Chao Beidou couldn't help asking. We're leaving the Eastern Demon Territory, Yuan Changtian said casually. Yuan Changtian said casually, I don't want to meet Lin's son in the following days. In this case, I don't care, but it's not good for you. Chao Beidou and Yun Tianming felt depressed, but they had to admit that they really didn't want to run into Lin's son. However, only an hour later, Yuan Changtian stopped in his tracks and frowned. Two figures stood in the distance. They were Lin's son and Li Jun. How could it be? Chao Beidou and Yun Tianming's expressions changed. The worst thing they wanted to see was about to happen. What a coincidence to see Brother Lin and Elderly here. Yuan Changtian greeted them with a hearty smile. Not at all. It took me several days to find you. Fortunately, we finally met here. Otherwise, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to see you in the entire Eastern Demon Territory. Lin Sun said indifferently. His words made Chao Beidou and Yun Tianming's hearts sink. Lin Sun really came for revenge. Yuan Changtian sighed. Brother Lin, we're all representatives of Yuan Church in this battle. Can you take a step back and stop fighting in the 10th Demon Territory? Otherwise, we'll be laughed at by others. It'll be a disgrace to Yuan Church. Elder Yuan didn't care that I'm a member of Yuan Church when you betrayed me. Lin Sun sneered. Or Elder Yuan is also involved in this matter? Chao Beidou scolded. Lin Sun, you're just a deacon. How can you talk to Elder Yuan like that? You're a traitor. What right do you have to criticize me? Lin Sun walked over as he spoke. His dark eyes were terrifyingly cold. I'll be frank. Today, I'm here to help the sect get rid of the traitor. Chao Beidou's expression changed. How dare you? You're not only slandering me, but also trying to hurt me? Yuan Changtian seemed to sense something. He narrowed his eyes and said, Middle stage of Nirvana realm. I never imagined that it's only been 2 months since you entered the 10 Direction Fiend region. Yet Brother Lin's cultivation has actually already broken through a realm. Remarkable, truly remarkable. He did not try to hide his surprise. Advancing from the early Nirvana God realm to the mid-Nirvana God realm in 2 months, this transformation speed was simply unbelievable. What? Chao Beidou and Yun Tianming were also shocked. Lin Sun's combat strength was already so heaven-defying when he was at the early stage of Nirvana God. How terrifying would he be now? Elder Yuan, if you want to stop me, then you'll be my enemy. If you don't want to be on the same side as these two traitors, then it's best if you don't interfere with what happens next. Lin Sun's figure flashed and rushed toward Chao Beidou and Yun Tianming. Boom! The abyssal sword cauldron streaked across the sky, scattering millions and millions of rays of light. The power of time fluctuated as it charged towards Chao Beidou together with Lin Sun. Lin Sun, you're defying your superiors. If the sect finds out, you won't be forgiven. Chao Beidou bellowed with an ugly expression. As he spoke, his movements weren't slow at all. He activated a Dao sword and slashed out. Whoosh! Sword chi surged and laws surged. It was extremely ferocious and domineering. From this, one could see that anyone who could take on the role of an elder of the Yuan sect all had battle strength that far surpassed others in the same realm. They were even stronger than the 10 undying giants and the other participants. Unfortunately, Lin Sun, who had stepped into the middle stage of the Nirvana God realm, was no longer the same as before. Without using any talent, Lin Sun directly bombarded it with abyssal sword cauldron. A terrifying collision sound rang out. The sword chi that Chao Beidou slashed out was directly crushed and exploded, causing chaos in heaven and earth. Chao Beidou's pupils constricted. He used all of his cultivation to activate the Dao sword and slashed. Dang! 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 Every single sword strike was domineering, ferocious, and peerlessly terrifying as they slashed fiercely at the abyssal sword cauldron that was pressing down. However, even after slashing out thousands of times, he was still unable to stop the abyssal sword cauldron's momentum. Sword chi continued to disperse, creating a beautiful sight. Chow Beida's expression changed completely as he tried to dodge. Clang! A Dao sword flew out from the abyssal sword cauldron and slashed out at an unbelievable speed. Crack! At this critical moment, Chow Beidu used the Dao sword to block in front of him. However, the moment it touched Lin Sun's Dao sword, it was cut into two. Lin Sun's Dao sword did not lose its momentum and continued to slash down. Elder Yuan, save! Chow Beidu roared. His face was pale, and his heart was filled with extreme fear. Puffed! Before he could finish, his head was chopped off. Blood spurted out from his neck like a waterfall. One slash. That absolutely crushing and murderous stance was like an invincible god that could sweep through the world. During this process, Yuan Changtian had the impulse to stop Chow Beidu several times. No matter what, Chow Beidu was still serving him. If Chow Beidu was killed under Yuan Changtian's eyes, it would make him lose all face. However, Yuan Changtian held back in the end. Firstly, it was because Lin Sun's current display of battle strength shocked him. Secondly, it was because he did not want to fall out with Lin Sun at this moment. It would delay his plan and affect his plan to seek for the great fortune in the 10 magic territory 10 years later. In fact, Yuan Changtian also knew that these were just excuses. In the final analysis, he was not absolutely sure that he could kill Lin Sun. No matter what, Chow Beidu was killed by Lin Sun like a hot knife through butter in front of his eyes. The bloody scene cast a shadow over Yuan Changtian's face. Yin Tianming, on the other hand, was so frightened that his hair stood on end. He fled into the distance at once. Yuan Changtian's indifferent attitude made him realize that he could no longer count on Yuan Changtian to resolve this crisis. Therefore, he could only flee. Do you think you can escape? A trace of disdain flashed across Lin Sun's eyes. He chased after them at once. Watching Lin Sun and Yin Tianming disappear, Yuan Changtian did not stop them. However, he couldn't help but clench his fists. Unconcealable anger and shame surged in his heart. As the divine son of the Ninth Heaven's Yuan clan, he even had a transcendent realm existence like Yuan Shiliu by his side. Even if he entered the Yuan clan, he would be treated specially, and no one dared to disrespect him. But now, Lin Sun's merciless killing had deeply hurt his self-esteem. It made him feel embarrassed, and he lost his composure for the first time. His handsome face was faintly livid. Elder Yuan, do you think Lin Sun is right? Li Zhen, who was not far away, suddenly asked. Yuan Changtian took a deep breath and said coldly, Elder Li, we both know what's right and what's wrong. What's the point of asking? Elder Yuan, you don't have to be so angry. Li Zhen seemed to be deliberately provoking Yuan Changtian, saying, Lin Sun did this to eradicate the traitors for our sect. Speaking of this, Elder Yuan should be happy. Otherwise, if the sect finds out that you keep 2 traitors by your side, I'm afraid you will be implicated. Yuan Changtian wanted to slap Li Zhen to death, but in the end he restrained himself and said, Elderly, you are right. Looking at Yuan Changtian's uncomfortable expression, as if he had eaten a fly, Li Zhen couldn't help but laugh. Just as he was about to say something, Lin Sun's figure had returned from the void in the distance. Whoosh! Lin Sun arrived with a bloody head in his hand. It was Yun Tianming's. The Lord of the Second Peak had made no attempt to hide his hostility towards Lin Sun ever since Lin Sun had entered the Yuan clan. Yet now, he had died miserably at Lin Sun's hands. Even before he died, his face was filled with shock, anger, and fear. Brother Lin, how can you explain this to the sect when you go back? Yuan Changtian sighed. Elder Yuan, do you think what I did was wrong? Lin Sun looked at Yuan Changtian with cold eyes. Yuan Changtian felt a chill in his heart. Realizing that Lin Sun was very likely to fall out with him, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. No, I just think that even if they are traitors, they should be handed over to the sect to convict and punish. In this way, no one will gossip about you. Lin Sun said indifferently, Don't worry, Elder Yuan. As early as in the Wana Mountain Range, I captured some enemies alive. They are all witnesses to prove that Chow Beidu and Yun Tianming are traitors. Yuan Changtian narrowed his eyes slightly and said with a smile, Then I'm relieved. Li Zhen had a strange look in her eyes. She didn't expect that Lin Sun was so good at telling lies. There was no such thing as a hostage. Obviously, it was Meng Yuan Changtian's. Lin Sun was warning Yuan Changtian not to make a fuss about this matter. "What's your plan next, Brother Lin?" Yuan Changtian asked. "Do you want to act together?" Lin Sun shook his head. "Forget it. I've already said that I won't implicate others. I don't want Elder Yuan to be targeted by my enemies." Yuan Changtian's lips twitched imperceptibly. He said, "Since Brother Lin has made up your mind, I won't ask you to stay any longer. Goodbye." Then he turned around and left. He was worried that if he stayed any longer, he wouldn't be able to control his anger and killing intent. "Elder Yuan." Lin Sun's voice suddenly came from behind. Yuan Changtian stopped and said, "Brother Lin, is there anything else?" "Nothing much. I just wanted to say that Elder Yuan's ability to maintain his composure is truly outstanding. However, in my opinion, there are some things that can be endured and some things that can't be endured. Enduring silently will instead make you lack the sharpness of bravery and slaughter, making you seem very useless. What do you think?" Lin Sun said. Lin Sun's words stimulated Yuan Changtian's anger, which he had suppressed with great difficulty. After a moment of silence, he took a deep breath and said, "Brother Lin, in my opinion, a lack of forbearance in small matters will spoil great plans. If you're always aggressive, you will die prematurely." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure tore through the sky and quickly disappeared. It seemed that if Lin Sun said one more word, Yuan Changtian would lose control of his killing intent and burst out completely. This guy is really good at forbearance. He's scary. Witnessing this scene, Li Zhen couldn't help saying, "As a divine son, he's so shrewd. We should be more vigilant against him in the future." Lin Sun smiled and said, "If he had full confidence to kill me, why did he have to bear it before? In the final analysis, he was afraid of me. Then why didn't you kill him before?" Li Zhen asked. Lin Sun put his hands behind his back and said casually, "If I killed him, I was afraid that some old guys would go crazy, which would be disadvantageous to my situation. Instead of that, it's better to keep him alive. He'll be more valuable to us if he's alive." More updates. Only by adding more updates would I have the confidence to ask for monthly votes. Chapter 2944. Li Zhen immediately understood. If he kills Yuan Changtian now, Yuan Shiliu, who is waiting outside the 10-direction demonic realm, won't let him off. The Jinji clan of the 9th heaven won't let him off. Even when he returned to Yuan's sect, Fu Wenli, Qi Shaoyun, and other big shots would use this as an excuse to attack Lin. On the other hand, if Yuan Changtian was still alive, none of this would have happened. Moreover, the enemy would have spent all their efforts on cultivating Yuan Changtian, which would have given Lin Sun more time to rise. This was not fear, but a consideration of the pros and cons. For a moment, Li Zhen looked at Lin Sun in a different way. In the past, the impression Lin Sun gave him was that Lin Sun possessed terrifying reserves, a heaven-defying combat strength, and was extremely courageous. It seemed as if there was nothing in the world that Lin Sun feared. But as he worked side by side with Lin Sun for a period of time, he found that Lin Sun was not only broad-minded but also courageous and resourceful. This was extremely rare. Senior, for the next period of time, I plan to focus on hunting orderly dire beasts. I want to strive to increase my cultivation level by another level when I enter the Earth Demon region 9 years later. Lin Sun said. 2 months of time had allowed his cultivation to undergo a qualitative transformation and step into the intermediate stage of the Nirvana God realm, and this caused Lin Sun to look forward to his next mission. He was very clearly aware that if he didn't have the opportunity to participate in the Eternal Tao battles, then it would have taken him countless years to achieve such a breakthrough in his cultivation in such a short period of time. The 10 Directions demonic realm was different. There were order beasts scattered all over the place, and they could continuously hunt for order energy. However, these order energy were all incomplete, and there was almost no complete order energy. But for the cultivation of the Nirvana realm, it could be said to be the world's most precious treasure. However, Lin Sun had already noticed that as his cultivation broke through to the middle stage of Nirvana realm, the power of order below the 6th level of the Earth rank would not be of much use. In other words, the power of order below the 6th level of the Earth rank could hardly play any role in improving Lin Sun's cultivation. This was a reality that all cultivators had no choice but to face. In the lower 5 realms, any random spirit grass and spirit medicine would allow one's cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds. But as one's cultivation increased step by step, the cultivation resources that could satisfy one's cultivation also became rarer and rarer. And this was in the eternal true world. If Lin Sun had stayed in the galaxy's ancient path, he might not have been able to attain eternity. Therefore, Lin Sun cherished this opportunity very much. Li Jun naturally had no objection to Lin's decision. In the following period of time, Lin Sun and Li Jun's figures appeared in various areas of the Wana mountain range, trekking over mountains and rivers, hunting wild beasts. When they were tired, they would sit cross-legged to meditate, and when their physical strength was restored, they would continue trekking. His days were extremely fulfilling. Half a year later, Lin Sun and Li Jun left the 10,000 Ravine mountain range and headed toward one of the 3 great danger zones of the eastern demon region, the Blackstone Desert. The 1,000 Gully mountain range had already been swept clean by the 2 of them. They had hunted close to 500 Earth-rank fierce beasts, but the number of heaven-rank desolate beasts was extremely few. There were less than 20 of them. From this, it could be seen how rare heaven-ranked desolate beasts were. 1 year later, Lin Sun and Li Jun left Blackstone Desert. The harvest this time was even smaller. In the end, they only killed less than 200 Earth-ranked wild beasts and 6 heaven-ranked wild beasts. The reason was that Yuan Changtian, Chao Beidu, and Yin Tianming had already swept through the place at the beginning of the Immortal Dao battles. Lin Sun's cultivation hadn't improved much. It wasn't as fast as before, but it was still thousands of times better than cultivating in the outside world. According to Lin Sun's own estimation, if he wanted to achieve the same rapid progress as before, he would need to refine a large amount of heaven rank order energy. As for the earth rank order energy, it was becoming less and less useful. In the end, Lin Sun simply stored the earth rank order energy he had collected, planning to give it to his friends and family in the future. It couldn't be helped. Even Wu Shuang, the spirit of order, didn't want these treasures that everyone in the outside world coveted. The eastern demon region had 3 great ominous places. Apart from the 1,000 Gully mountain range and Blackstone Desert, there was also a place called the Turbulent Demon Sea. However, when Lin Sun and Li Jun arrived, they discovered that Yuan Changtian was walking in this great ominous place. He had already hunted many order wild beasts. Lin Sun couldn't be bothered to compete with Yuan Changtian, so he decided to leave the eastern demon region. In the 10 demon regions, apart from the earth demon region and the sky demon region, there were 8 other demon regions. As for the forces participating in the Immortal Tao battle, the participants of the 4 ancestral halls and the 10 immortal giants had been moved to different 8 demon regions. However, Lin Sun was sure that there should be many areas in these demon regions that hadn't been swept away. As long as he seized the time, he would definitely be able to seize more order energy. It was also at this time that Lin Sun understood the meaning of the Immortal Tao battle. The participants of the major forces were competing with order wild beasts as their targets. They were competing for order energy. This could be counted as a merit, and it could be used as proof of ranking at the end of the Immortal Tao battle. This was also a great fortune. After all, who would complain about having too much order energy? Let's go to the southeast demon region. Lin Sun made up his mind. Year after year passed. After the eastern demon region, Lin Sun and Li Jun traveled to the southeast demon region and the southern demon region. During this period, Lin Sun and Li Jun also encountered some enemies. For example, when they were in the southeast demon region, they encountered Wang Ju Huan and the other 10 immortal giants. When enemies met, their eyes naturally burned with hatred. Fighting was inevitable. Unfortunately, with the heavy lesson of last time's fiasco, Wang Ju Huan chose to retreat as soon as he sensed Lin Sun and Li Jun's presence. This seemed very cowardly. But Lin Sun was sure that Wang Juhuan and the others wouldn't give up just like that. The reason they chose to retreat was because they hadn't found an opportunity yet. According to Li Jun, in the entire eternal true world, Lin Sun was the only one who could force the 10 immortal giants to flee at the sight of him. This wasn't an exaggeration. If it were anyone else, they would have been hacked to death by Wang Juhuan and the others. In the southern demon region, Lin Sun and Li Jun encountered a surprise attack from the voodoo cult. At that time, the voodoo cult was led by Tsang Fufeng. When Lin Sun and Li Jun were hunting a heaven wild beast, they suddenly launched an attack. The situation could be said to be extremely dangerous. At the critical moment, Lin Sun used the Seal of Time to block the attack. Only then did they resolve this sudden, killing crisis. When their attack failed, Tsang Fufeng and the others realized the power of the Seal of Time. After trying to attack several times, but to no avail, they turned around and retreated. Lin Sun didn't counterattack at that time, nor did he chase after them because he noticed that in addition to Tsang Fufeng and the others, the 4 Buddhist lords of the Zen sect were also hiding in the dark. This experience also made Lin Sun more vigilant. In the 6th year after entering the 10 demon region, on a bloody wasteland in the southwest demon region, Senior, I plan to meditate in seclusion for a period of time. Lin Sun, who had just experienced a great battle and killed more than 10 order wild beasts, said, "You're about to break through?" Li Jun asked. Over the past 6 years, he and Lin Sun had traveled to different demon regions and killed more than 5,000 Earth-rank wild beasts. Even the number of Heaven-rank wild beasts they killed had reached more than 100. After refining the Heaven-rank wild beasts, Lin Sun's cultivation had reached the peak of the middle stage of Nirvana God. He was only 1 step away from the late stage of Nirvana God. Not bad. Lin Sun nodded with anticipation in his eyes. Compared to the last time, when he broke through the middle stage of Nirvana God, it only took him 2 months to break through this time. In the end, it was because there were too few Heaven-rank wild beasts, and the Order wild beasts possessed the Earth-rank wild beasts could no longer satisfy Lin Sun's needs. However, for Lin Sun, this kind of progress was already very good. At least if he didn't participate in this immortal Tao battle, he didn't dare to imagine how long it would take for him to reach the late stage of Nirvana God. Even 1,000 years was considered short. I have to say, after living for so many years, you're definitely the fastest person I've ever seen in the Nirvana God realm. Li Jun couldn't hide the shock in his heart. In the outside world, this kind of cultivation speed was definitely a miracle. It was enough to create an unbreakable record. Who asked me to only be an Earth-rank Nirvana God when I participated in the Immortal Tao battle? Lin Sun laughed. Almost all the experts participating in the Immortal Tao battle were the Nirvana God stage. No matter how much order energy they obtained, it wouldn't be of much help to their cultivation. Just like Li Jun, she had told Lin Sun from the beginning that he had no use for the power of order. It was the same for the other participants. In this way, how rapid Lin Sun's progress could be seen. In other words, Lin Sun was catching up with other participants in the 10 devilish realms step by step in terms of cultivation with the power of order he hunted. But in terms of combat strength, it was a different story. At the very least, Lin Sun had killed many participants when he was at the early stage of the Nirvana realm. And now, he was about to break through to the late Nirvana God realm from the mid-Nirvana God realm. On that day, Lin found a secluded place and set up the Seal of Time. Then, he took out the heaven-ranked order origin that he had recently collected from the Abyssal Sword Cauldron and began to meditate and cultivate. Li Jun stood guard at the side. 5 days later, a muffled rumble suddenly rang out between the heavens and earth, shaking the earth and shaking the heavens. Following that, a series of beast roars came from afar, resounding like dense claps of thunder. Rumble, rumble. The commotion was so great that it made Li Jun's heart skip a beat. He stood up abruptly and saw a long black line appearing in the distance. It was moving towards him at an astonishing speed. The black line that stretched between the heavens and the earth was formed by countless wild beasts of order. They covered the sky and the earth like a tide. They roared and roared, turning into a torrent that swept through the mountains and rivers. The sky changed color, the sun and the moon dimmed, and the earth shook violently as if it was collapsing. The momentum made Li Zhen's expression change. Beast tide. It was a calamity formed by countless order wild beasts. Chapter 2945. It was Li Zhen's first time seeing such a large-scale beast tide in the 6 years since he entered the 10 demon territories. It covered the sky and covered the earth. It swept through the mountains and rivers. This did not seem like an ordinary beast tide. Instead, it seemed like countless densely packed order energies had gathered together, covering the sky and earth to bring disaster to the human world. Rumble. The earth shook, and mountains and rivers collapsed one by one. The terrifying aura of order energies was spreading toward them at an extremely fast speed. Li Zhen was about to remind him when Lin Sun, who was meditating, stood up. There was a hint of seriousness in his eyes. "Senior, retreat quickly." As he spoke, he and Li Zhen had already teleported into the distance. Looking down from the sky, Lin Sun and Li Zhen could not help but gasp. In the distance, the figures of the Order Wild Beasts were like a black storm wreaking havoc. There were tens of thousands of them, and wherever they passed, the world seemed to be crushed. It was a scene of desolation. Lin Sun and Li Zhen did not dare to be negligent. They avoided the sharp edge and hid far away. What surprised them was that the huge beast tide was not coming for them. Instead, it was rushing from the east to the west. Rumble. There were densely packed ferocious birds in the sky, and countless ferocious beasts on the ground. They trampled through the mountains and rivers, tore the sky apart, and passed under Lin Sun and Li Zhen's eyelids in a mighty manner. Where are they going? Lin Sun frowned, a little bewildered. In his divine consciousness, there should be tens of thousands of this beast tide. More than 90% of them were Earth-rank Order Wild Beasts, and only a small number were Heaven-rank Order Wild Beasts. Li Zhen said, "Rumor has it that before the world barrier to the Earth Demon territory opens, the Order Wild Beasts distributed in the 8 demon territories will sense it and gather in groups to head to the Earth Demon Abyss." Lin Sun was stunned. He suddenly remembered that the Earth Demon territory was located in the deepest part of the Earth Demon Abyss. These Order Wild Beasts evolve by devouring and absorbing Order energies. The more Order energies they devour, the more powerful they can evolve. Beneath the Earth Demon Abyss lies an unimaginable amount of Order energies, Li Zhen said. The Order Wild Beast that turned into the Beast Tide must have sensed that the world barrier of the Earth Demon territory has begun to change, so they immediately rushed to the Earth Demon Abyss. Something similar has happened in the past Immortal Dao battles. If I'm not mistaken, in the next 3 years, there will be more and more beast tides like this. Lin Sun's eyes flashed. But there is also a rumor that there is an Order Beast King under the Earth Demon Abyss. It is because of the call of the Order Beast King that countless Order Wild Beasts are attracted here. And in the end, these desolate beasts that reach the Earth Demon Abyss will all become food for the Beast Kings of Order to be eaten. The Beast Kings of Order do this to accumulate enough power to charge into the Earth Demon domain. Only by entering the Earth Demon region can the Order Beast Kings achieve a further transformation in their own strength. Hearing this, Li Zhen nodded. There is indeed such a saying. What we can be sure of is that there is a true Order Beast King in the Earth Demon region. The Order power that it possesses is completely intact and is completely different from other Order beasts. Lin Sun looked into the distance and suddenly said with a smile, "Senior, there are so many wild beasts of Order. We can't let them slip away under our eyes." The vast beast horde was about to disappear into the far west. As long as we don't confront the beast horde head-on, we can take the opportunity to fish in troubled waters. Li Zhen was also eager to have a try. Let's go and catch up with them. Lin Sun rushed into the distance immediately. At this time, Li Zhen suddenly found that Lin Sun's cultivation had quietly broken through during the 5 days of closed-door training. Late stage of Nirvana realm. Although Li Zhen had long been sure that there would be no twists and turns in Lin Sun's breakthrough, she still couldn't help feeling shocked when she witnessed all this with her own eyes. More than 6 years. From the early stage of Nirvana realm to the late stage of Nirvana realm, since ancient times, who could compare with such a speed of breaking through the realm? Boom! Boom! In the distance, the beast horde swept through the mountains and rivers, and the world was shaking. Gradually, Lin Sun and Li Jun caught up from behind. However, before they could take action, a green light suddenly rushed out from the other side of the beast horde. It was like a hazy, misty rain spreading in the void. Puff! Puff! With a muffled sound, more than 30 wild beasts of order covered by the green light were burned into ashes in an instant. Whoosh! Suddenly, another green light swept out like a big net, burning more than 20 wild beasts of order. The most terrifying thing was that these wild beasts of order had clearly sensed the danger and launched a counterattack. But when they touched the green light, they were burned instantly like moths flying into the fire. This domineering scene made Lin Sun and Li Jun's eyes narrow and their hearts tremble. At this time, Lin Sun finally saw clearly that the one who cast the green light was a woman. She was tall and slender, wearing a plain robe with wide sleeves. Her black hair hung down at her waist, and her face was fair and clean. She was as beautiful as an orchid in an empty valley, aloof from the world. It was Ji Shanhai. At this moment, she was holding a green spear that was 18 feet long. The body of the spear was crystal clear and light green in color. As she waved it, the tip of the spear would release a green brilliance. It was as soft as misty rain, but it was filled with a terrifying, incinerating power. The death of the desolate beasts of order was caused by her. Ji's green fire purifying spear. Li Jun said in surprise. Green fire purifying spear. It was a legendary divine weapon of the Ji God clan. It had the power to incinerate the universe and purify the world. The one who cast this divine weapon was a supreme figure that didn't belong to this era. He was known as the King of Weapons. When the King of Weapons was refining this weapon, he searched the world and gathered the essence of 100,000 divine flames. He tempered it with countless immortal gold and divine iron. During the refining process, this weapon went through 9 strange and forbidden tribulations. On the day it was completed, it seized all the good fortune. It was rumored that this weapon was intelligent and couldn't be tamed. Only those who were recognized by it could become its master. And it was said that when Ji Shanhai was born, the green fire purifying spear that was imprisoned in the Ji God clan let out an earth-shattering cry. It broke the shackles and rushed to Ji Shanhai's side. It turned into a strand of green hair and wrapped around her little finger. This was also one of the things that people took delight in talking about. Before Lin Sun participated in the immortal Dao battle, he had read about Ji Shanhai and the green fire purifying spear when he was studying the information of the participants. At that time, he was quite surprised. Now that he saw the power of this spear, Lin Sun was also moved because he could feel the power of time from the green fire purifying spear. Being respected by Yuan Changtian and Tsang Fufeng and possessing such a treasure, this woman is really not simple, Lin Sun thought. He still remembered the subtle look in Yuan Changtian's eyes every time he talked about Ji Shanhai. There was both passion and fear in his eyes. He also remembered that when Ji Shanhai appeared in the witchcraft cult, she became the focus of everyone's attention. All this was enough to prove that Ji Shanhai wasn't simple. Do you want to have a competition? While Lin Sun was thinking, a quiet and clear voice suddenly sounded in the distance. At the same time, Lin Sun noticed that Ji Shanhai's eyes were looking at him from afar. Her phoenix eyes were like crystal clear stars. How? Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. Ji Shanhai waved the green fire purifying spear and pointed at the beast tied in the distance. From now on, until we reach the Earth Demon Abyss, we'll see who can kill more wild beasts of order. As long as you win, I'll tell you a secret. Lin Sun asked with interest. A secret? If you want to know, you have to beat me. As he spoke, Ji Shanhai had already started to move. With a sweep of the green spear, the sky was full of green lights and shadows, dreamy and illusory. Boom! In the far distance, the bodies of more than 10 wild beasts of order were incinerated into ashes. Ji Shanhai's slender figure seemed to be moving slowly, but was actually very fast. In the blink of an eye, she had caught up with the beast tide. During the battle, she was outstanding and had the momentum of conquering the world. Then I'd like to see what kind of secret you will tell me. Although Lin Sun didn't understand why Ji Shanhai did this, he had to admit that this success aroused his interest. He immediately took out the abyssal sword cauldron and stepped forward with a hearty smile. Boom! Lin Sun's cultivation, which had broken through the late stage of Nirvana God, suddenly changed. His tall figure was steaming with hundreds of millions of lights, which evolved into an obscure abyss. And he took out the abyssal sword cauldron immediately. Looking from afar, it was as if an ancient divine mountain had fallen from the sky and smashed into the beast tide. Immediately, the wild beasts of order exploded into pieces, and the ground was blasted into a huge pit. The air was filled with blood. With one strike, he killed 29 wild beasts of order. This domineering and bloody scene made Li Zhen's eyelids twitch. Lin Sun, who was at the late stage of Nirvana God, had become even more powerful than before. The late stage of Nirvana God? On the other side of the void, Ji Shanhai also revealed a trace of surprise. Then, she withdrew her gaze, shook the green world purification spear in her hand, and rushed forward. The beauty was as beautiful as jade, and her momentum was like a rainbow. The majestic horde of beasts was running wildly in the world. Anyone who was drawn into it would most likely encounter a life-threatening danger. When attacked, these wild beasts of order would not let themselves be slaughtered. They would be enraged and fight back like crazy. That kind of power was not something that anyone would dare to face head-on. But today, whether it was Lin Sun or Ji Shanhai, they were not afraid of it. The beast tide ran wildly from east to west, while the two of them were on the north and south sides of the beast tide, chasing after the beast tide and attacking it continuously. For a time, there would be wild beasts of order being killed in the beast tide from time to time. They were either incinerated into ashes or blasted into dregs, leaving behind a trail of blood. Li Zhen, who had been chasing behind, no longer had the time to be shocked. She chased after them like an odd-job worker, collecting the spoils of war along the way. Ha ha, Li Zhen, when did you become a dirty worker? Not long after, a loud laughter with a hint of mockery was heard. Along with the voice, Pu Songzi, Tan Luyun, and Lu Yufeng of the Spirit Church appeared. The one who had spoken to Li Zhen was Tan Luyun. He and Li Zhen had known each other a long time ago, and it was the kind of friendship that resulted from an exchange of blows. Cut the crap. If the Spirit Church doesn't want the merits of Ji Shanhai's kills, they will all belong to the Yuan Church. Li Zhen snorted coldly. His action of collecting the spoils of war became faster, and he snatched a lot of the spoils of war that Ji Shanhai had killed along the way. Tan Luyun immediately became anxious and exasperated. Old man, stop. P.S. Seeking monthly votes. As long as the monthly votes return to the top 20, Goldfish guarantees that there will be an update tonight. Chapter 2946. Tan Luyun shouted and rushed over. Quick, let's attack together. We can't let Li Zhen steal our Spirit Church's victory. Pu Songzi and Lu Yufeng dared not delay. They also rushed over and joined the team to clear the spoils. Li Zhen could not help but scoff. Aren't you the same when you say I'm doing dirty work? Tan Luyun was instantly embarrassed. He said stubbornly, but we can't let the Yuan Church take advantage of us for nothing. Speaking of which, did Lin Sun of the Yuan Church really break through to late-stage Nirvana God in the past 6 years? Li Zhen said, of course. His tone was very certain and proud. Show off. Tan Luyun glanced at him. In my opinion, no matter how strong he is, he can't compare to Ji Shanhai. She's the goddess of the ninth heaven. She's the only one in the world. Li Zhen's counterattack was very simple. Is Ji Shanhai a descendant of the Spirit Church? Tan Luyun almost choked on his words, unable to refute. No matter how outstanding Ji Shanhai was, he was not a descendant of the Spirit Church. However, Lin Sun was a true descendant of the Yuan Church. After a while, Tan Luyun argued, brotherly, if I remember correctly, Lin Sun is a descendant of Fangsun Mountain. He only joined the Yuan Church later on. Li Zhan said, since he joined the Yuan Church, he's a descendant of the Yuan Church. Is there a problem? Tan Luoyuan was speechless. This was a fact that could not be refuted. They chatted at the back while clearing up the spoils of war. Meanwhile, Lin Sun and Ji Shanhai were engaged in an intense competition in front of them. However, the mighty beast Tide was in trouble. They were killed in batches, leaving behind severed limbs and blood on the ground. This was unbelievable. If it were any other participant, they would probably find it extremely difficult. After all, they might be able to kill dozens of Order Dire beasts with one strike if they used their trump cards. However, it was almost impossible for them to carry out such a massacre for a long time. However, Lin Sun and Ji Shanhai were each more powerful and domineering than the other. Each strike could kill at least a dozen beasts, and at most, dozens of them. Of course, most of them were Earth-ranked dire beasts. There were very few Heaven-ranked dire beasts. But even so, it was enough to make the other participants feel inferior. Just like Li Zhan, Tan Luoyuan, and others who were sweeping up the spoils of war along the way, they clearly knew the grades and specific numbers of wild beasts that Lin Sun and Ji Shanhai had hunted. So, they were shocked again and again. How long has this competition been going on? Tan Luoyuan asked. 15 minutes. Li Zhan said casually. How many did Lin kill? It's over 600. Where's Ji Shanhai? Well, he's a little stronger than Lin Sun. He's already broken 700. Tan Luoyuan smiled, feeling honored as well. Li Zhan frowned. It's not time to see the results yet. Don't be anxious. Tan Luoyuan sighed with emotion. Alas, even if Lin Sun loses in the end, it's enough to make us feel ashamed. After all, I'm afraid that even we old bones can't do this. Li Zhan seemed to be praising Ji Shanhai, but Li Zhan felt sick of him and said, if Ji Shanhai loses, I want to see if you can still laugh. Tan Luoyuan chuckled and said, I knew you weren't convinced. Let's just wait and see. Boom! Sounds of fierce fighting came from afar. There was the roar of sword tripod and cyan light flowing. Every scene was soul-stirring. However, the beast tide was vast and huge, numbering in the tens of thousands. Even though Lin Sun and Ji Shanhai followed and killed along the way, the number they killed was still only a small part. Why don't you use your talent? Ji Shanhai suddenly asked in the battle. Obviously, she had been paying attention to Lin Sun's movements while fighting. You haven't used your talent either, have you? Lin Sun said casually. Ji Shanhai's pink lips curled up slightly. I couldn't tell that you're quite arrogant. However, my cultivation is higher than yours. Even if you use your innate ability, I won't think that you're using tricks. Her words were full of magnanimity. I don't think that the level of cultivation represents the strength of combat. Lin Sun said indifferently. Really? Then I won't stand on ceremony. After saying that, Ji Shanhai suddenly flashed and rushed into the beast tide, holding the greenly world-purifying spear in her hand, killing in it. Lin Sun's eyes flickered and he immediately smiled. That's for the best. Boom! He stretched out his body and moved horizontally with the abyssal sword cauldron in his hand. His aura suddenly rose to the extreme, and the Taoist sword in the sword cauldron, which he had never used before, swept out with a clear clang. Swoosh! The Taoist sword swept across the sky and slashed down. Visible to the naked eye, a scarlet bloody crack appeared in the tide-like beast tide. It was a crack caused by the slash of the sword. As the sword chi hit the ground, the Order wild beasts on both sides of the bloody crack were also affected, and their bodies exploded one by one. Just one slash of the sword had killed 54 Earth-rank Order wild beasts. In this regard, Ji Shanhai's eyes had a hint of a smile, and she thought to herself, if I didn't do that, I probably wouldn't have been able to force you to use all your strength. Swoosh! She leaped forward, and the verdant world-purifying spear in her delicate and fair hand shone brilliantly, releasing a sharp and domineering green divine flame. Everywhere the flame passed, the desolate beasts of Order were reduced to ashes. There was no way to stop it. This woman's cultivation is indeed not simple. At the same time, Lin Sun was also secretly surprised. It should be known that he was now at the late stage of Nirvana God, which was incomparable to when he first entered the Ten Devil territory. At this time, even if he met Wang Juahuan again, he was confident that he could easily suppress him. But in the face of Ji Shanhai, a goddess from the ninth heaven, Lin Sun didn't have such confidence. Along the way, he had seen Ji Shanhai's battle in full view, and he had long realized how powerful this woman was. What Lin Sun couldn't figure out was that Ji Shanhai hadn't used her talent until now. According to Lin Sun's previous understanding, Ji Shanhai's talent was extremely special and mysterious, and it was related to the cycle of life and death. Her most famous talent in the ninth heaven was called Vanity of Troubled Times. It was said that after this talent was used, the enemy would be trapped in a chaotic catastrophe, and their life and death would be beyond their control. All their cultivation would be turned into nothingness in the catastrophe. However, from beginning to end, Ji Shanhai didn't use this talent. This undoubtedly proved that Ji Shanhai didn't intend to expose all her trump cards in such a competition. This coincided with Lin Sun's thoughts. Next, Lin Sun abandoned all distracting thoughts and attacked with all his strength. The abyssal sword cauldron roared, and the Taoist swords whistled, showing a momentum of crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. The number of order wild beasts killed by him also rose rapidly. Not far away, Ji Shanhai, who witnessed all this, didn't say much, but his momentum became more and more fierce. This made Li Jun and the others who were cleaning up the spoils of war in the rear couldn't help but feel nervous. They realized that Lin Sun and Ji Shanhai had already launched an all-out competition. This could be seen from the sudden increase in battle achievements at the beginning. As time passed, the sky and earth in the distance suddenly darkened, and a seemingly boundless abyss appeared. The deep colors seemed to drag the night into the depths of the abyss, making the world dim. Earth Demon Abyss. The beast horde at the forefront, after rushing to this place, let out a shocking roar, and without any hesitation, jumped into the depths of the abyss. Looking down from the sky, the beast horde was like a waterfall pouring into the abyss. After falling into the abyss, their figures quickly disappeared. At the same time, Lin Sun and Ji Shanhai also saw this scene. "You seem to be losing," Ji Shanhai said. Even though she was speaking, she didn't stop killing. Obviously, she wouldn't slack off until the last moment. However, Lin Sun suddenly smiled and said, "That's not necessarily true." Swoosh! 5 Tao forms whizzed out from his body and moved forward at an unbelievable speed. Like a barrier, they forcefully pierced into the beast horde. The charging beasts of order were blocked, and each of them launched an extremely violent attack, as if they had gone mad. The 5 Tao forms naturally wouldn't just stand there and wait to be captured. They blocked the beast horde and began killing. Behind them, Lin Sun's original body was also charging over. This scene was very much like a huge rock blocking a river. No matter how the waves washed against it, it couldn't be shaken. However, there was no doubt that this method was dangerous. The previous killings had always been from the back. In order to head to the Earth Demon Abyss, those that weren't affected by the battle naturally wouldn't turn around to attack Lin Sun. However, now that Lin Sun's 5 Tao forms were blocking the path of many order beasts, they instantly suffered the most terrifying impact. Rumble. The heavens and earth shook, and the beasts roared like thunder. For a moment, blood rained, and the world was in chaos. When he saw this scene, Ji Shanhai couldn't help but be startled. He didn't expect Lin Sun to use such a dangerous method to win. Far away, Tan Luyun, Pu Songzi, and Li Yufeng all widened their eyes and felt that this was bad. How could they not see that the longer Lin Sun's 5 Taoist bodies held out, the more order dire beasts he would kill, and this would very likely allow Lin Sun to turn the tables. Ruthless, Tan Luyun gritted his teeth. Pu Songzi and Li Yufeng were also anxious. If Ji Shanhai lost, it would be very hard for them to accept. Li Jun said, "Old Tan, why aren't you smiling now?" Tan Luyun glared at Li Jun and was about to say something when he saw Ji Shanhai suddenly changed direction and charged towards Lin Sun's beast horde with the green separation spear. With Lin Sun's 5 Tao forms blocking in front, she attacked from the back. It was as if she and Lin Sun were working together, and it immediately worked. Of course, this was actually snatching the prey. Lin Sun was stunned. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he couldn't stop it because there was no rule against it in this competition. In the end, about 1,000 beasts that were blocked by Lin Sun's 5 Tao forms were all killed. The other beasts rushed into the Earth Demon's abyss. Senior, please count the battle results and see who has more, Miss Shanghai or me. Lin Sun stood at the side of the Earth Demon's abyss and turned his head to ask. There's no need to count. Ji Shanghai put away the green separation spear and gently rubbed her white and slender hands. She looked at Lin Sun with her clear eyes and said casually, "From the moment you agreed to compete with me, I've decided to tell you the secret no matter what the final result is. P.S. Send more updates to me." Chapter 29:47. Lin Sun was speechless. After a while, he said, "All right." He had vaguely figured out that the reason why Ji Shanghai wanted to compete with him was not about winning or losing, but to test his strength. In the distance, Tan Luyan, Pu Songzi, and Lu Yufeng all heaved a sigh of relief. They had been counting the spoils along the way. If they really counted the number of order beasts they killed, it would be hard to say who would win. After Lin Sun used the 5 Tao bodies at the last moment, the number of order beasts he killed suddenly skyrocketed. Li Zhen also heaved a sigh of relief. He had been collecting Lin Sun's spoils along the way, so he had the clearest idea of Lin Sun's final results. However, he wasn't sure if Lin Sun could beat Ji Shanghai. But now none of that mattered. You guys retreat for a while. Ji Shanghai walked to the side of the Earth Demon Abyss. His plain, wide-sleeved dress fluttered in the wind. Li Zhen, Tan Luyan, and the others looked at each other and tactfully left, leaving the place to Lin Sun and Ji Shanghai. This made Lin Sun even more curious. What secret was Ji Shanghai trying to tell him? Ji Shanghai was silent for a long time, then said, "A long time ago in my family, there was a girl who was more talented than me. She was more intelligent than me. She was regarded as the successor of the patriarch by the elders of the clan. She was the pride of the entire clan." Lin Sun was a little surprised, but he continued to listen patiently. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Over the years, similar things have happened too many times. That girl was no exception. Perhaps because she was too perfect, she encountered an unexpected disaster. What disaster? Lin Sun was surprised. With the power of the Ji clan, how could they not protect a girl who was qualified to inherit the position of the patriarch? A wisp of ridicule arose on the corners of Ji Shanghai's mouth. This is an extremely vulgar calamity, and it happens every single day. Every single clan and power will encounter it. Vulgar. Such a description made Lin Sun realize that this disaster must not be an earth-shattering disaster, nor was it destined to be a very special and rare thing. There are 36 divine clans in the ninth heaven, 12 eternal divine clans, and 24 immortal divine clans. My Ji clan is one of the 12 eternal gods. Ji Shanghai's voice was as clear as a spring. The other eternal gods naturally know that our Ji clan has produced a woman who is the center of attention. During those years, many old fellows came to propose marriage, hoping that the divine sons of their clans could marry that woman. In fact, the eternal god clans behind those old geezers have stepped forward to fight for this woman. This incident also caused a sensation in the ninth heaven, and everyone in the world knows about it. It was also because of the marriage kidnapping incident that this woman's fame spread throughout the world. Everyone was curious about how beautiful and dazzling she was. That was why all the eternal gods were willing to fight over her. Speaking of this, Ji Shanghai's eyes also had a subtle and complicated look. After that, she sighed lightly, but no one knows that because of this woman, serious dissension arose within the Ji clan. Some people want her to marry someone else so that she can form an alliance with an eternal god. This will further strengthen the Ji family's position. Some people didn't want to do this and accused the old people who wanted her to marry an eternal god to kick her out of the clan, so that others could have a chance to seize the position of the successor of the clan. Interestingly, those who wanted her to marry an eternal god also had conflicts. Some wanted her to marry into the Yi clan, some wanted her to marry into the Zhu clan, and some wanted her to marry into the Taihao clan. For this reason, they argued fiercely with each other. Lin Sun couldn't help but frown when he heard this. If that's the case, your Ji clan was really chaotic at that time. Why didn't anyone suppress all of this? Ji Shanhai said, it involves the core interests of the clan. Even the old people who have reached the eternal realm have disagreed with each other. How could they suppress all of this? What's more, that woman is a woman after all. Since ancient times, among the 12 eternal gods of the ninth heaven, there has never been a female patriarch. Although that woman also has the support of many old people and sees her as the successor of the patriarch, it's not that there is no opposition. Lin Sun sighed softly and said, what does this woman think? Ji Shanhai seemed to be greatly touched by Lin Sun's words. He looked at Lin Sun and said, the saddest thing is that from the beginning to the end, everyone has imposed their own will and ideas on her in the name of thinking for her own good and planning for her. But no one has ever asked her what she thinks. Even her father, the patriarch of the Ji clan, only told her that no matter what the result is, she should put the overall situation of the clan first. Ji Shanhai's lips curled up in a sneer. A woman made the whole Ji clan restless and even fell into internal strife for this. Isn't it ridiculous? Since ancient times, there has been a saying that femme fatale, but that woman has done nothing from the beginning to the end. Is she wrong? Lin Sun said without hesitation, of course not. On the contrary, the old people of your clan are too disappointing. Ji Shanhai said, if these things hadn't happened, this woman would still be the most dazzling star of the clan and the pride of the whole clan. But after these things happened, she was just a chess piece in the eyes of others. For the so-called overall situation of the clan and the interests of the clan, she could only be at the mercy of others. And then, Lin Sun asked. Ji Shanhai said, later, the woman left alone. The chess pieces left the chessboard, which made the old people who were playing dumbfounded. The old people who wanted her to marry reprimanded her for not caring about the overall situation and wasting their efforts. The old people who wanted her to become the successor of the patriarch were furious. They thought that she couldn't bear the responsibility and couldn't bear the hardships and let them down. All in all, the entire clan has placed all the blame on her. The eternal divine clans who wanted to unite with the Ji clan by marriage also stopped talking about it. After all this fuss, the plans of the old people of the clan fell through one by one, and they lost face in front of the world. This matter was seen as a disgrace to the Ji clan, and very few people even talk about it now. The matter of that woman has become a taboo in the Ji clan. Even now, some of the old people are still brooding over it. Lin Sun couldn't help but feel sad when he heard this. After a while, he said, the Ji clan's efforts were all for naught. The woman's departure actually benefited the other eternal divine clans the most. After all, she was so famous and dazzling. She was destined to become an incredible existence in the future, but the eternal divine clans were happy to see her leave the Ji clan because of this. Yes, Ji Shanhai said. The Ji clan eventually understood this, but it was too late to change anything. Lin Sun shook his head. Even if there's a chance to change things, if the events of the past happen again, this woman will still be a chess piece. Ji Shanhai couldn't help but be stunned. You think so too? Lin Sun said, it's not that I think so. It's the truth. If this woman is in your clan, she will block the way of others seeking the successor of the patriarch. The other eternal divine clans will also take the opportunity to propose marriage. On the surface, they want to unite with the Ji clan by marriage, but in fact, they want to take away the most dazzling pearl of the Ji clan. If these two problems can't be solved, there is no way to change anything. Ji Shanhai sighed faintly. There are many old people in the Ji clan who have figured this out, but it's not easy to solve them. Lin Sun said, if I may ask, Is this all the secret you want to tell me? Ji Shanhai said, Aren't you curious about who that woman is and where she went after leaving the Ji clan? Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. He realized something and said, Do I know her? Yes. Ji Shanhai didn't deny it. After she left, she was worried that she would be found by the clan. So she used a taboo technique to seal her cultivation and memory, and entered the ruins of fate by deceiving everyone. Because she knew that although the world was big, the power of the Ji clan was enough to find her easily. Only by entering the ruins of fate could she avoid the possibility of being taken back to the clan. Hearing this, Lin Sun's heart trembled. Lightning flashed in his mind. He said, You mean, she? Ji Shanhai said, Her name is Ji Shi, my sister. Inexplicable emotions surged in Lin Sun's heart. He never knew that she came from the Ji family of the eternal god race in the ninth heaven. A long time ago, he was regarded as the successor of the Ji family's patriarch and the pride of the Ji family. All the major eternal god clans fought to propose marriage to him. How dazzling was she at that time? But it was such a peerless woman who became a pawn in a storm. Her life was out of her control and at the mercy of others. How disappointed she must have been to leave the clan so resolutely. Sadly, her departure was met with the angry accusations of her clansmen, as well as their disappointment in her. How laughable! Countless years had passed, but her name was still a taboo in the Ji clan. Very few people talked about it, and many old antiques even took it to heart. All of this made Lin Sun angry and pitiful. After a long time, he said, If I had known this, I wouldn't have let Jun Fenglai take her away, even if I had to give up everything. Back in the Kunlun ruins, Jun Fenglai crossed the starry sky and took she away. Until now, Lin Sun still remembered Jun Fenglai's appearance. He wore green armor and carried a silver spear on his back. His snow-white hair was coiled into a bun, and his face was incomparably handsome. Jun Fenglai was the first immortal Lin Sun had met, but when facing she, he was as respectful as a servant. His words were filled with absolute respect. At that time, Lin Sun realized that Shi's identity was destined to be extraordinary. However, he didn't expect Shi's past to be so rough and sad. Chapter 2948. On the other side of the Earth Demon Abyss, the world was gloomy. Ji Shanhai looked at Lin Sun, who couldn't hide his anger, and said, As long as any member of the Ji clan recovers or awakens to the immortal realm, they will be sensed by the ancestral tablet in the clan. After a pause, she continued, This means that even if Jun Fenglai didn't go to find my sister, it would be someone else. How is she now? Lin Sun asked. Ji Shanhai said, She is grounded. Grounded? Lin Sun frowned. Ji Shanhai said, The clan needs her to make a decision. What decision? To marry Taihao Ji, the divine son of the Taihao clan. Can't refuse? If she refuses, she will be grounded for the rest of her life. Lin Sun couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Isn't your father the patriarch? How could he do this to his own daughter? Ji Shanhai said, You misunderstood. It was my father who secretly sent my sister out of the clan. But now, although my father is the patriarch, his power has long been controlled by other elders in the clan. He is no different from a puppet. Lin Sun was stunned. After a moment of silence, he said, I really shouldn't have let you be taken away by Jun Fenglai. His voice was full of hatred. I'm only telling you this because when I was chatting with my sister, I found out that you were always with her during those years on the Star Sky Ancient Path. I'm not trying to encourage you to go to the Ji clan to save them. In fact, with your current strength, you'll just die if you go, Ji Shanhai said. Lin Sun let out a long breath and said, Maybe not now, but it's possible in the future. Ji Shanhai stared at Lin Sun for a moment and said, Can I trust you? Lin Sun said, I will do it even if you don't believe me. His voice was firm. When he was still a teenager, he entered the heaven-accessing secret land and became acquainted with Shi. In the many years that followed, Shi helped him a lot. He also helped him many times, standing up for him and shielding him from the wind and rain. Now that he knew Shi was in a worrying situation, how could he remain indifferent? He would help Shi even if he had to sacrifice his life. Ji Shanhai's pink and moist lips curled into a smile as she said, I forgot to tell you. Big sister asked me not to tell you anything related to her, so as to avoid you being swept into the storm of my Ji clan. But I just did it. I just wanted to see what kind of person you were. Now I know. At this point, Ji Shanhai said, you don't have to worry about this now. Although my sister is under house arrest, her life is not in danger. If one day you have the confidence to save my sister, I can help you. Lin Sun cupped his hands and said seriously, thank you. At this moment, a hearty laughter rang out in the distance. Junior brother. Along with the voice, Moon and Well's thin and strong figure flew over from afar. His face was full of smiles. You guys talk. Ji Shanhai turned around and left. Senior brother. Lin Sun also greeted them with a smile. You and Miss Jean knew each other before? Looking at Ji Shanhai's departing figure, Moon and Well said with interest. Lin Sun shook his head. It's also the first time I've met her. However, her sister is an old friend of mine. Senior brother, where did you go before? Moon and Well said with a smile. I met some opponents. I couldn't help but kill a few of them, so I was delayed for a while on the way. Who did you meet? Lin Sun was surprised. Of course, they were the 10 immortal giants. Moon and Well laughed. I'm not as good as you. After ambushing for a long time, I only seized the opportunity to shoot and kill 6 people. I was almost blocked by others. Lin Sun said, let me guess. Senior brother, you must have killed them with one arrow neatly. Moon and Well said with a strange look. There was only one chance for a surprise attack. How could the enemy give me a chance to release 6 arrows in a row? I just shot 9 arrows at a time, killing 6 people and seriously injuring 3. Lin Sun gasped. In that case, I underestimated your ability, senior brother. Moon and the Well laughed out loud. The art of archery is all about killing with one shot. It's fine if I don't move, but when I move, it's an all-out attack. In reality, after shooting these 9 arrows, I've used up more than half of my cultivation. I can no longer fight and can only escape. Lin Sun said in amazement. I must find a chance to see your archery power. Moon and Well patted his shoulder and said, let's find a place to drink and talk. Lin Sun agreed readily. Beside the earth demon abyss, the bonfire was raging. Lin Sun, Li Jun, Moon and Well, Ji Shanhai, Pu Songzi, Tan Luyun, and Li Yufeng sat cross-legged, each taking out their treasured wine and chatting. The atmosphere was harmonious. Among the 4 ancestral courts, Yuan Church and Spirit Church had the best relationship. The strong of the 2 ancestral courts also communicated with each other and were familiar with each other. During the conversation, Lin Sun also learned some things about 3rd sister Roosu, 15th brother Qingting, and 19th brother Shuya in Spirit Church. The situation in Spirit Church was somewhat similar to that of Yuan Church. There were also many strong people from immortal forces who held high positions and great power. For example, Zhong clan, Jing clan, Dongwon clan, and so on. However, in these years, under Osu's planning, these descendants of Mount Hart had already gained a firm foothold and gradually started to grasp more power. Now, even the old guys from the 10 immortal forces and Spirit Church couldn't do anything to Ruosu and the other descendants of Mount Hart. Of course, Ruosu and the others were able to obtain their current status because of the support of many old Spirit Church antiques. The ancestral court of Spirit Church had 8 mountains and 4 courtyards. The 8 mountains were similar to the 9 peaks of Yuan Church. Each mountain had positions such as Mountain Master, Protector, Inner Disciple, and Outer Disciple. The 4 courtyards were similar to the 3 pavilions of Yuan Church. They were East Spiritual Courtyard, South Martial Courtyard, North Net Courtyard, and West Cloud Courtyard. Each courtyard had positions such as Dean, Spiritual Elder, Spiritual Lord, Spiritual Son, and so on. The Dean of Spirit Church was equivalent to the Pavilion Master of Yuan Church, the priest of which church, and the 3 Buddhas of Zen Church. The Spiritual Elder of Spirit Church was equivalent to the Deputy Pavilion Master of Yuan Church, the priest of Wizard Church, and the Buddha of Zen Church. Now, Ruosu had already become a spiritual elder of Spirit Church's East Spiritual Courtyard, which was equivalent to the deputy pavilion master of Yuan Church. The other descendants of Mount Heart also had their own positions. For example, Moon in Jingzhongyue was a spiritual lord of Spirit Church's South Martial Courtyard, which was equivalent to the elder of Yuan Church's 3 pavilions. All in all, in these years, the descendants of Mount Heart who had entered Spirit Church had displayed extremely shocking brilliance. Not only did they break through realms quickly, but their battle prowess was also comparable to overlords in the same realm. They had also caused a great sensation in Spirit Church. But for Lin Sun, this was normal. It should be known that the Almighties who went to divine ruins through the starry sky ancient path a long time ago, such as Weiyang, Divine Elephant, Myriad Star Divine Tree, and Xingjia, had all attained eternity. Many of these descendants of Mount Heart were in the same generation as those Almighties. In terms of talent and foundation, they were even more outstanding than those Almighties. But why had almost no one attained eternity? The main reason was that the descendants of Mount Heart had too many enemies, and the dangers they faced were also too great. They had been stuck on the starry sky ancient path since ancient times. Only after they defeated Venerable Emperor Nameless did they leave the starry sky ancient path and head to eternal true world. If not for that, with the foundation and talent of the descendants of Mount Heart, they would have long since stepped into eternal realm. Lin Sun could be said to have experienced this deeply. At the very least, he knew very well that if he had not left the starry sky ancient path, he would still be stuck in Emperor realm. He would not have been able to attain eternity. However, there were pros and cons to everything in the world. It was precisely because their levels of cultivation and potential had been suppressed for too long that during the years they had been in eternal true world, Mount Heart's descendants were like trapped dragons that had risen to the heavens. Their suppressed potential was released, and it was difficult for their Tao not to improve by leaps and bounds. Moreover, the path of Tao that Mount Heart's descendants pursued was extraordinary, allowing them to possess battle prowess that surpassed all others in each realm. That was why they were able to shine brilliantly in Spirit Church and display their brilliance. If it was not because they had to fight against the 10 immortal giants and resist the suppression of many great enemies over the years, with the abilities of Mount Heart's descendants, their achievements in their path of Tao would not have been limited to this. After the banquet, Ji Shanhai and the others decided to leave. This was the 6th year since the immortal discussion of Tao began. They still had to wait for another 3 years before they could enter the Earth Demon region under the Earth Demon Abyss. Ji Shanhai and the others represented the ancestral court of Spirit Church this time, so they naturally had to hunt more Order Wild beasts. Lin Sun and Li Jun did not travel with them. They acted separately so that both sides could hunt the most Order Wild beasts. Before leaving, Moon in the Well told Lin Sun that within 100 years, there would be a shocking change in the 4 great ancestral courts. It asked Lin Sun to strive for the position of Yuan Qing Pavilion Master as soon as possible to prevent other accidents from happening. Calculating the time, there were now only about 80 years left before Yuan Qing Pavilion Master Yu Beihai would attain eternity. Before leaving, Ji Shanhai told Lin Sun that within 1,000 years, there would be a calamity that would bring about the change of an era. In today's 9th heaven, the 12 eternal gods and the 24 immortal gods had already begun to prepare for the destruction of an era. Lin Sun had heard this news from Chen Linkong when he was in the ruins of fate, so he was not surprised. After Ji Shanhai and the others left, Lin Sun and Li Jun also left the vicinity of the Earth Demon Abyss, their figures disappearing into the vast world. In the following period of time, Lin Sun and Li Jun trekked in different demon regions, as usual, hunting Order Wild beasts. However, the number of Order Wild beasts they encountered along the way decreased. For Lin Sun, who was now at the late stage of Nirvana realm, Earth-rank Order Wild beasts could no longer meet the needs of cultivation. Unfortunately, there were too few Heaven-rank wild beasts, so the amount of Heaven-rank Order Wild beasts that could be hunted was naturally very little. Time passed day by day. In the end, it was difficult to even find Earth-rank Order Wild beasts. On one hand, many Order wild beasts had already rushed into the Earth Demon Abyss. On the other hand, it was also because the participants of the major forces were searching for and hunting Order wild beasts. Many places had been swept many times. Under such circumstances, it was naturally extremely difficult to hunt a large number of Order wild beasts like before. In the end, Lin Sun simply found a place with Li Jun and began to meditate. In the 9th year of entering the 10th demon territory, the world barrier leading to the Earth demon territory disappeared. The entire 10th demon territory shook violently, and a thunderous roar resounded through the sky. The participants who were scattered in different places were immediately alarmed. P.S. I still want to add more chapters today. Do you still have monthly tickets? Come to my bowl. Chapter 2949. In the past, the great Earth Demon Abyss was like a well that locked in the darkness, causing the world to be dim. But today, the great Earth Demon Abyss shone brightly. The participants, who were scattered in different areas, rushed here almost immediately. When they arrived, they did not hesitate to rush into it. Within the Earth Demon territory, there were Order Beast Kings that possessed complete 9th grade Heaven rank sequence power. Their value was far greater than that of incomplete sequence power. Apart from that, one could also find divine level order fragments, eternal divine medicine, and even spirits of order in the Earth Demon territory. To any participant, this was a treasure they yearned for even in their dreams. Lin Sun and Li Jun had arrived as well. They did not encounter any accidents along the way, nor did they encounter any other participants. They successfully entered the Earth Demon Abyss. At the bottom of the abyss, light emerged, but it was not dazzling. When they had sunk to a depth of 90,000 feet, a huge domain portal appeared in the sight of Lin Sun and Li Jun. But at this time, Lin Sun slowed down. His eyes flashed as he said, "Elder, be careful. There is killing intent hidden in the domain portal." As he spoke, he took out the abyssal sword cauldron. It had been 3 years since he had broken through to the late Nirvana God stage. Due to the lack of sufficient heavenly order energy, his cultivation progress had been slow. But after 3 years of accumulation and tempering, Lin Sun's cultivation became more and more solid. Li Jun's heart trembled as she drew her black saber. Whoosh! When Lin was close to the portal, the black water Taoist body appeared out of thin air. If there really was an ambush, once the other party launched a surprise attack, they would definitely use their strongest methods to deal a fatal blow to him and Li Jun. If they charged in forcefully, it would be extremely unwise. However, with the Blackwater avatar, everything was different. Swish, swish, swish. The Taoist light on the body of the Blackwater body surged and instantly turned into 3,000 figures. They were densely packed and filled the space around the realm gate. Innate divine power, 3,000 weak water. Each figure had the aura of the late heavenly longevity realm. With 3,000 figures gathered, it was like an enormous army of the heavenly longevity realm. Of course, these clones were different from the 5 great Taoist bodies. They did not have intelligence or cultivation, nor could they cultivate on their own. They were purely illusions of the Blackwater Taoist body. But even so, such an innate divine ability could be said to be shocking. Go! Lin Sun's Blackwater body pointed at the world gate. Boom! 3,000 doppelgangers rushed in like a tide. Beyond the dimension gate was a vast world. There were boundless mountains and rivers, and it revealed a primitive and ancient aura of chaos. Standing in the middle of these mountains and rivers, the realm gate that led to this place was like an enormous vortex that floated in the sky, completely motionless. Wang Juhuan and the other participants of the 10 Undying Giants were all waiting. This is our last chance. If we let Lin Sun live, we won't be able to kill him in this immortal law battle, said Yi Futian. Wang Juhuan looked very calm, and his voice passed in the ears of the people around him. Next, what I want you to do is to take out all the forbidden things you brought into the 10 magic territory this time. As long as Lin Sun appears, kill him. Beside him, a total of 18 participants from the 10 Undying Giants revealed vicious expressions. Wang Juohuan looked into the distance and said, "Of course, even if we can't kill Lin Sun, we can still severely injure him. Those guys from Voodoo Cult and Zen Cult are also waiting to take advantage of him." There was a hint of disdain in their voices. In the distance, Song Fufeng of Witchcraft Sect and Wen Xiaoshui of Zen Sect were watching in secret. They had no intention of getting involved. But Wang Juhuan knew that as long as Lin Sun could not hold on, the two ancestral halls would take the opportunity to attack. If possible, Wang Juhuan would rather kill Lin Sun with their own strength. Someone is coming. At this moment, someone whispered. In the sky, a tall figure suddenly rushed out of the still vortex portal. It was Lin Sun. Kill! Wang Juhuan, who had been waiting for a long time, gave the order immediately. Boom! The 10 immortal giants didn't hesitate to take out their trump cards and killing moves. All kinds of treasures flashed with dazzling light and soared into the sky like an earth-shattering flood, shrouding the whirlpool door. The area in all directions was drowned by wind, thunder, lightning, and all kinds of horrible Taoist light. The Witchcraft Sect, Zen Sect, and other Taoist cultivators in the distance were shocked and felt a chill down their spines. Boom! Lin Sun's figure suddenly exploded and was drowned by the terrifying torrent of power. Dead? Seeing this scene, Wang Juhuan was stunned. It seemed that it was too easy, and the people around him also felt like they were dreaming. They had already experienced Lin Sun's strength, but they didn't expect that the ambush would go so smoothly. No. Wang Juhuan's pupils suddenly shrank. From the portal of the vortex, figures rushed out like a tide. Every one of them was Lin Sun, densely packed and mighty. All the people nearby were stunned, and the same thought came to their minds at the same time. It was Lin Sun's doppelganger that died just now. But he had too many doppelgangers, wasn't he? I knew Lin Sun wouldn't die like this. Song Fufeng, Wen Xiaoshui, and others who saw this scene in the dark had a strange look in their eyes. Kill! Wang Juhuan shouted. He had realized that Lin Sun was obviously prepared, which meant that the surprise attack plan had failed. But the situation at this time didn't allow them to stop. Boom! 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 All kinds of secret treasures containing taboo aura rose into the air, causing the world to shake and the nearby mountains and rivers to collapse. The power gathered was so terrible that it seemed to destroy the whole world. Lin Sun's densely packed doppelgangers suddenly suffered terrible damage. In just a few breaths, thousands of doppelgangers disappeared. It wasn't that these doppelgangers weren't strong enough. After all, each of them was comparable to the late stage of Heaven Longevity Realm. It was because Wang Juhuan and others were all existences at the peak of Nirvana Realm. For this ambush and surprise attack, they had used all their trump cards. That kind of power was enough to destroy any Nirvana Realm existence, let alone some doppelgangers at the late stage of Heaven Longevity Realm. Boom! The world shook, and the terrible torrent of power was boiling like a waterfall of the Milky Way. Lin Sun's doppelgangers were constantly dissipating and collapsing. However, Wang Juhuan and others were not happy at all, because up to this time, Lin Sun's real body had not appeared, and the power of the secret treasures in their hands had been completely exposed and consumed rapidly. Retreat. Wang Juhuan's face was livid. Although he was so depressed that he was about to explode, he didn't dare to hesitate any longer and made a prompt decision to retreat. Boom! At this moment, a sword cauldron rushed out of the vortex portal. Hundreds of millions of rays of light flowed in the void and rumbled towards Wang Juhuan and others. It was unstoppable. In an instant, a deafening collision sounded. Several strongmen who had no time to escape could only use their treasures to fight against it. But in just a moment, they were smashed by the abyssal sword cauldron and collapsed, seriously injured and coughing up blood. Then, a clear and melodious sword sound sounded from the abyssal sword cauldron. A Taoist sword came out and swept across the void. Puff! 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 On the spot, 3 strongmen who had already been seriously injured were killed by the sword chi. Their bodies were crushed by the vast sword chi, and blood splashed everywhere. Wang Juhuan's eyes were wide open, and he roared, "Go!" His voice shook the sky. However, there were still many doppelgangers that belonged to Lin Sun in all directions. At this moment, they were like obstacles, blocking the retreat of Wang Juhuan and others. At the same time, Lin Sun and Li Jun rushed out of the vortex portal and directly moved into the void, rushing towards Wang Juhuan and others. The most ruthless thing was that Lin Sun's 5 Taoist bodies all moved together and rushed at different opponents. The power was like the descent of a god. The scene was completely chaotic. Light and roars intertwined, and the turbulent power spread wildly, showing a scene of destruction. Wang Juhuan felt a chill in his heart. He was fleeing with all his strength, but in his field of vision, his companions were being slaughtered one after another, falling in this turbulent and broken world. The frenzied fighting aura was mixed with the smell of blood, stimulating his eyes and making them bloodshot. As the chosen one of the first immortal giants of the Wang family, he felt so powerless for the first time. Deep frustration, depression, and anger were like a landslide and a tsunami, making him feel like he was about to explode. But he didn't fight desperately. Instead, he fled frantically, his hair disheveled, like a crazy demon. Boom! A sword cauldron whistled over. Clang! Wang Juhuan used the ancient sword with pine patterns to block it, but his whole body was shaken back. His qi and blood surged, and he couldn't help but cough up a mouthful of blood. Not far away, Lin Sun's true body charged over. "I knew that you, Wang Juhuan, wouldn't let this go. Unfortunately, none of you will leave alive today." The sword cauldron shone, shattering the void and blasting towards Wang Juhuan. "Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me." Wang Juhuan's expression was ferocious as he brandished his sword. Clang! 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 Intense collisions rang out. No matter how crazily Wang Juhuan attacked, they were all blocked by Lin Sun's abyssal sword cauldron. Before long, Wang Juhuan coughed up blood again and again, his face pale and translucent. He had suffered serious injuries. "You don't seem qualified to drag me down with you." As Lin Sun spoke, he stepped into the void with unparalleled divine courage and slashed down with his sword. Crack! The ancient sword in Wang Juhuan's hand exploded, fragments flying everywhere. His whole body was smashed upside down and fell heavily on the ruins hundreds of meters away. He was covered in blood and looked extremely miserable. The chosen one of the Wang family, the first immortal giant, was in a terrible state at the moment. "Dying!" Wang Juhuan roared. In his mouth, he suddenly spat out a blue bead. It was the space-time thunder bead. But at this time, this treasure seemed to be burning, giving off a dangerous aura that made people's hearts palpitate. Lin Sun's pupil shrank. At this moment, a divine arrow cut through the sky with dazzling light and rushed at an incredible speed. This arrow was too fast, like a thunderclap shaking the 9 heavens. Bang! Wang Juhuan's body was directly blown up by the arrow, and a rain of blood exploded like fireworks. One arrow killed him. I'm sending you more updates. Chapter 2950. Mountains and rivers withered and turned into ruins. The aftermath of the raging battle was still sweeping between heaven and earth like a gust of wind. Song Fufeng and others of the witch sect, and Wen Xiaoshui of the Zen sect, who had been watching the battle in secret, looked solemn. The battle lasted for less than a quarter of an hour, but it could be described as soul-stirring. The ambush of the 10 immortal giants, led by Wang Juhuan for a long time, was completely defeated in front of the space-time portal of the Earth Demon region. It was a pity that Wang Juhuan and others were defeated. He had been planning this for a long time, and he had even unleashed all of his trump cards in one go. In the face of this sudden attack, even Song Fufeng and Wen Xiaoshui would suffer heavy casualties if they were caught off guard. Unfortunately, Lin Sun had prepared for it. No one expected that Lin Sun would use 3,000 doppelgangers first, so that Wang Juhuan's carefully prepared ultimate means were consumed. The fatal danger was resolved in this way. When facing the attack of Lin Sun, They were naturally unable to resist. The most frightening thing was that in this battle, Lin Sun's many doppelgangers also played a role in restraining Wang Juehuan and others, blocking their retreat. Under such circumstances, they could only be slaughtered at will. At the last moment, when they saw the sudden appearance of the arrow that killed Wang Juehuan, the participants of the witch sect and the Zen sect were shocked. It was too strong. The power of the arrow was like a judgment from heaven. Wang Juehuan, the chosen one of the immortal giants, was dead. He had planned to fight desperately and drag Lin Sun down with him. Unfortunately, all this didn't happen. Even his space-time thunder bead, which was about to explode, suddenly became dim and fell from the void after he was killed. But before it fell to the ground, Lin Sun caught it in his hand. Then he looked into the distance and said with a smile, "Today, I finally get to know your archery style." In the distance, the thin and fierce figure of Moon in the well appeared out of thin air. He put away the dark bow in his hand, smiled and showed his snow-white teeth, and said, "I can only secretly shoot arrows." His words were modest, but who dared to think so? The might of the Tao of arrows caused all of them who were top figures in the rebirth god realm to feel extremely threatened. Sneak attacks are the deadliest. Lin Sun laughed. The eyes of Tsang Fufeng and the rest of the witchcraft cult and Zen cults when Xiao Shui and the rest of the witchcraft cults Tsang Fufeng and the rest of the Zen cults when Xiao Shui flashed as they watched the pair of brothers from Minuscule Mountain chatting happily on the battlefield. Everyone realized that the Yuan sect represented by Lin Sun and Li Jun would be a huge threat in the following year in the Earth Demon region. The battle was over. In the nearby mountains and rivers that had been turned into ruins, 19 participants from the 10 great immortal forces, including Wang Juehuan, had been killed without a single survivor. Among them, Li Jun killed 4, Moon and Well killed 1, and the rest were all killed by Lin Sun. It could be said that the 10 undying giants had been completely annihilated. "Do you want to continue watching?" Lin Sun suddenly said. He looked at the voodoo cult and the Zen cult coldly. "It's good to get rid of the 10 undying giants." In the past, the immortal Tao battle was a competition between the 4 ancestral halls. Tsang Fufeng waved his hand and left with the other 4 voodoo cult participants. Lin Sun took a deep breath and suppressed his killing intent. He did not stop them. How could he not know that Tsang Fufeng and the others had been lying in ambush not just to watch the show? In other words, their goal was to take advantage of the situation. Unfortunately, they did not have a chance to do anything from beginning to end. Congratulations on entering the late rebirth god realm, Taoist Lin. If there is a chance in the future, I would like to see your attainments in the Tao. In the distance, when Xiao Shui slightly cupped his hands. He was handsome and had an extraordinary temperament. He did not reveal any intimidating power. "Why not now?" Lin Sun asked. One Xiao Shui laughed and said, "We have just entered the Earth Demon region. Why are we in such a hurry to fight? Wouldn't we be letting others take advantage of the opportunities in this world?" Lin Sun thought for a moment and nodded. "You are right. Goodbye." When Xiao Shui smiled and turned away with the others, until they disappeared, Li Jun said, "I thought you would take this opportunity to attack them." Lin Sun said, "Don't worry. If we can't win in the Earth Demon region, we can win in the Heavenly Demon region. As long as we are in the 10 Demon region, no one can escape." In the distance, Moon in the Well said, "Junior brother, I have to go and meet with the other disciples of the Spirit sect." Lin Sun nodded and said, "Take care, senior brother." "You too." Moon in the Well left with a smile. The Spirit sect is really lucky to have your senior brothers and senior sisters around. Li Jun sighed with emotion. He said it out of his feelings. He had witnessed Lin Sun's great combat power. Now that he saw the power of Moon in the Well's archery, he could imagine how amazing the other successors of Fong Siyuan would be. "Senior, let's take action quickly." Lin Sun stretched his body and said with clear eyes, "I'm very curious about how many opportunities there are in the Earth Demon region." For 3 years, his cultivation had stabilized at the late stage of Nirvana realm, and his progress had slowed down again. But if he could hunt down some 9th level heaven rank order power he might be able to make significant progress in his cultivation again. Moreover, Lin Sun was also very curious as to what kind of wondrous effects the so-called eternal miracle medicine and divine-level sequence fragments had. Immediately, the two of them flashed and rushed into the distance. Not long after, Yuan Changtian emerged silently in the far distance of this dilapidated and withered mountain and river. He was wearing the sky-concealing feather robe, which could isolate all auras. No one could see through it except for those in the eternal realm. The drawback was also obvious. This treasure couldn't be used in combat. His combat power is getting stronger and stronger. Yuan Changtian's brows were tightly knitted together, and his handsome face was clouded by a gloomy expression. 9 years ago, when Lin Sun first entered the 10 magic territory, he was only at the early stage of Nirvana realm, but he was able to defeat Wang Juhuan in the Wanghu mountain range. 9 years later, Lin Sun was already at the late stage of Nirvana realm, which meant that he had broken through 2 levels. It was conceivable how terrifying Lin Sun's combat power was now. Yuan Changtian had seen the previous battle, and he clearly saw that Wang Juhuan and other Nirvana realm experts at the peak of Nirvana realm were vulnerable in the face of Lin Sun's attack. At that time, Lin Sun didn't use his talent at all. All these proved how fast and terrifying the transformation of Lin Sun's combat power was. This was the first time Yuan Changtian felt a sense of imminent danger. I won't be your enemy in the 10 magic territory, but if you dare to snatch the biggest opportunity, don't blame me for being rude. Yuan Changtian took a deep breath, suppressed the distractions in his heart, and turned away. The Earth Demon Territory was completely different from the previous 8 demon territories. The sky here was covered with a thick layer of haze all year round, which was condensed by countless violent and mixed auras of order, giving off an oppressive and dangerous aura. The vast mountains and rivers all showed the primitive aura of chaos. It was said that the Earth Demon Territory was the core place where the power of order was buried for many years. Only here could terrible creatures like the Beast King of Order be born, and only here could the eternal medicine be bred. This expanse of the heavens and the earth was extremely huge. In the past, all the participants that entered the Earth Devil region had explored this expanse of the heavens and the earth countless times. But so far, no one had been able to find out the boundary of this world. Lin Sun and Li Jun traveled all over the mountains and rivers, exploring everywhere. Day after day, they found nothing. Not to mention the ordinary Beast King of Order. Even the ordinary wild beasts of Earth rank seemed to have disappeared. Half a month later, Lin Sun and Li Jun, who were walking between heaven and earth, suddenly sensed a strong battle fluctuation. Soon after, they saw with their divine senses that there was a huge black lake in the distance. There were people fighting in the sky above the lake. It was Tsang Fufeng and his men from the witchcraft cult. Their opponent was a fierce beast the size of a mountain, shaped like a black tortoise. It had a dark green carapace that covered thousands of meters. Its limbs were like iron pillars. Its head was the size of a house, and its eyes were as bright as a pair of golden suns. This was an Order Beast King. It had the power of the 9th grade of heaven rank. Its huge figure was steaming with a monstrous divine light, extremely ferocious and terrifying. However, this Order Beast King was currently trapped and heavily injured. Tsang Fufeng held a pair of blazing bronze maces in his hands. Every strike was like a torrent of heavenly fire, producing a violent and destructive rumble. Beside him, the 4 participants of the witchcraft cult each took out their treasures and cooperated with Tsang Fufeng, firmly restraining the Order Beast King. The lake there was rolling, water and flames intertwining and erupting, and the world fell into chaos. The power of a Nirvana realm was too strong. It could easily burn the sky and boil the sea. If the Earth Demon Territory was not extremely sturdy, this huge lake would have sunk long ago. Senior, do you still remember what happened a few years ago? Lin Sun's black eyes surged with cold light. Of course I remember. A murderous intent flashed in Li Jun's eyes. A few years ago, when they were in the Southern Demon Territory, he and Lin Sun were ambushed by the participants of the witchcraft cult. At that time, the participants of the witchcraft cult were led by Tsang Fufeng. When he and Lin Sun were hunting a heaven-rank wild beast, they suddenly launched an attack. The situation could be said to be extremely dangerous. At the critical moment, Lin Sun used the time seal to block the attack. Only then did they resolve this sudden killing crisis. How could Li Jun forget such a thing? Senior, let me deal with him later. You take the opportunity to kill the Order Beast King. As long as we get the 9th grade heaven rank, we will immediately retreat. Lin Sun transmitted a message. Tsang Fufeng was the divine son of the Tsang family of the eternal god tribe in the 9th heaven. His combat strength should not be underestimated, and he had many trump cards. In the current Earth Demon territory, Tsang Fufeng was considered one of the opponents that Lin Sun valued. Lin Sun naturally would not neglect such a character. Okay, Li Jun readily agreed. Chapter 2951. Hold on. This beast can't hold on any longer, said Tsang Fufeng. His eyes were burning like flames, and his entire body was bathed in dazzling light. Heaven and earth trembled every time he swung the bronze maces in his hands. The terrifying power smashed onto the Order Beast King far away, causing it to howl in pain. It'll be interesting if someone tries to take advantage of the situation. Huashao laughed. His skin was dark, and his bones were thick. His entire body was filled with a fierce and overbearing aura. Back in the witchcraft religion, he had provoked Lin Sun and wanted to fight him. He even promised not to kill Lin Sun, but was stopped by the witchcraft religion's priest, Zhu Wenheng. We'll have to pass through Lord Song's restriction first. Someone spoke slowly. Before dealing with the Order Beast King, Tsang Fufeng had already laid a mysterious restriction that covered the entire lake. It was said that this restriction was called the 1,000 Peaks and was one of the 3 famous killing formations of the eternal god Song family. It was sufficient to trap and kill transcendent realm existences. Cut the crap. Hurry up and kill this beast. Lord Song said that the heaven level 9 order within this beast is extraordinary. Its value is immeasurable. Another person yelled. At that moment, a sword suddenly appeared in the void. It flashed in the air and slashed towards Tsang Fufeng. Along with the appearance of this sword, heaven and earth suddenly became silent. Forbidden passing magical power. Whoosh, however, at that moment, a black wooden token on Tsang Fufeng's waist suddenly emitted a magnificent glow. The Jing clan had dispelled the forbidden passing magical power's power. At the same time, Tsang Fufeng swung the bronze maces in his hands. Clang! The sword that was right in front of him was blocked, and countless sparks rained down from the collision. However, Tsang Fufeng was not happy at all. This was because in other directions, Lin Sun's 4 doppelgangers had seized this opportunity to attack the battlefield, catching the 4 witchcraft cult participants off guard. Crack! Someone's body was struck heavily. His bones were broken, and his figure was violently sent flying. Boom! Someone clashed head-on with Lin Sun's clones. However, he bled from all 7 orifices, and his expression changed. The other 2 were extremely far away and were lucky enough to avoid such a sudden attack. However, they were also shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. Apart from that, Lin Sun's other doppelganger and Li Jun took the opportunity to attack the Order Beast King. A series of actions took place in an instant. It was unbelievably fast. When Tsang Fufeng reacted, the scene was already in chaos. Lin Sun, with killing intent surging in his eyes, he waved the bronze mace and attacked Lin Sun himself. He'd been infuriated, and the aura emanating from his entire body was boundlessly terrifying. His entire body was bathed in surging divine flames, and it simply seemed as if it intended to incinerate the world. Boom! As he waved a pair of bronze maces in his hands, the void was smashed directly, and the violent torrent of flames rushed towards Lin Sun like a roaring dragon. There's no need to be angry, fellow Taoist. Didn't you sneak attack me like this before? Lin Sun smiled, and as he spoke, he was already using the abyssal sword cauldron to fight with Tsang Fufeng. Boom! The two were like two gods fighting, and each of them had unparalleled combat power in this realm. The bronze mace and the sword cauldron clashed, and a destructive force erupted that pierced through the universe. Even Lin Sun couldn't help but be surprised. Only when he really fought with Song Fufeng did he discover that this divine son from the ninth heaven was actually extremely tyrannical, much stronger than Wang Juowan. At the same time, Song Fufeng's heart was also in turmoil. This was the first time he really fought with Lin Sun, and he finally realized how terrifying Lin Sun was. Even though he was already at the great perfection of the Nirvana spirit realm, and his cultivation was higher than Lin Sun's, he still felt that he couldn't shake Lin Sun during the fight. Song Fufeng didn't dare to hesitate and used all his power. In an instant, layers of thunder and lightning intertwined around his body, making it seem as if he was attacking with layers of thunder and lightning. Every strike was filled with billions of thunder and lightning, and it was extremely terrifying. The Heavenly Thunder Realm. This was formed by the power of the immortal law that Song Fufeng had mastered. The immortal law that he condensed was comprehended from the divine order of his clan, so its power was naturally extremely powerful, far surpassing all the heavenly order in the world. The bronze mace in Song Fufeng's hands was also an extraordinary pair of supreme treasures, called the Thunderflame Twin Mace. Its power was unpredictable, and it didn't fall into a disadvantageous position in the fight against the Abyssal Sword Cauldron. At this moment, as Song Fufeng attacked with all his might, Lin Sun felt a kind of pressure. Not bad, not bad. This is what a divine son should be like. Lin Sun laughed. He activated the sword cauldron, and his whole body shone, no longer holding back or concealing anything. Boom! The two fought fiercely, and it was an unprecedented battle. But Song Fufeng was secretly anxious, because at the same time, the 4 participants of the witchcraft cult were also being attacked by Lin Sun's Great Tao doppelganger, and 2 of them were already seriously injured and couldn't hold on for long. Kill! Song Fufeng's long hair fluttered, and his power became more and more terrifying. However, no matter how much he wanted to suppress Lin Sun, he couldn't do it. Poof! Not long after, blood splattered in the distance, and a witchcraft cult expert who was already seriously injured was killed. His body was forcefully blown up by a punch, and his soul dispersed. Almost at the same time, in another direction, another heavily injured witchcraft cult expert couldn't hold on any longer and was killed on the spot. The remaining 2 witchcraft cult experts felt a chill in their hearts, and they were shocked and angry at the same time. All of this caused Song Fufeng's eyes to turn red, and he said, "Lin Sun, do you really think I can't do anything to you?" Boom! The aura around him changed again. Every inch of his skin was engraved with the mysterious lightning totem patterns. Even his cheeks were covered by the mysterious totem patterns, and his black hair was enshrouded by countless lightning arcs. A destructive power suddenly erupted from his body, and at that moment, it was as if a god had completely awakened in his body. Like the supreme Thunder Tao. Without a doubt, this was Song Fufeng's real trump card. Boom! He waved the Thunderflame Twin Mace, and with one strike, countless Thunder Tao patterns appeared, and there were billions of divine flames circulating. The surging destructive power made the world pale. Lin Sun resisted it with the Abyssal Sword Cauldron. However, this time, he and the Abyssal Sword Cauldron were both shaken back. Although they weren't injured, their chi and blood were tumbling. His pupils shrank. This should be Song Fufeng's talent, which combined the power of the immortal law and released to the extreme, so the power was incomparably strong. Kill! Song Fufeng rushed forward, and the Thunder Tao and divine flames on his body incinerated the void. The pair of copper mace smashed down like a peerless divine punishment. But at this moment, Lin Sun dodged far away and laughed. "Next time we meet, I'll have a good fight with you." As soon as his voice sounded, his figure had moved away out of thin air. Song Fufeng suddenly saw that the Order Beast King had been killed, and its 9th level heaven rank order power was also taken away by Li Jun and Lin Sun's doppelgangers. Undoubtedly, Lin Sun's purpose was not to risk his life, but to seize the opportunity. This irritated Song Fufeng. Lin's son, do you think you can leave? He was about to chase after him. Bang! In the nearby area, the body of a voodoo barbarian burst into pieces, and a rain of blood sprayed. Song Fufeng's body stiffened. It turned out that the voodoo barbarian suffered a fatal blow at the moment when Lin's son escaped. Because the speed was too fast, his body only exploded at this moment, and his soul scattered. You've gone too far. Song Fufeng was so angry that he almost went crazy. But it was a pity that Lin's son and Li Jun had already escaped and disappeared in the distant sky. At this time, even if he chased after them, he could not catch up. An indescribable suffocation surged through his body, and Song Fufeng had the urge to cough up blood. A sudden sneak attack not only killed the three Nirvana God Realm great perfection of the witchcraft cult, but also snatched away the Order Beast King that they were about to capture. This was a great loss. Not far away, Hua Xiao said with grief and indignation, Lord Song, they are all dead. Song Fufeng's face turned ugly, and he said angrily, Are you blaming me? Hua Xiao said, I just don't understand why the divine prohibition set up by Lord Song did not exert its power, so that when Lin Sun took the opportunity to kill us, we were not even prepared. Song Fufeng waved his sleeve. Boom! Formation flags rushed out from the nearby mountains and rivers. There were thousands of them, and they were the base of the Thousand Peaks Formation. But at this moment, one of the formation flags was dim, and it had lost all its spirituality. Song Fufeng's face turned gloomy when he witnessed this scene. How could he not be aware that Lin Sun had silently cracked open a safe path in the Thousand-Layered Peaks Formation, and thus easily passed through it? This despicable thing. Song Fufeng gritted his teeth in hatred. Originally, he had been thinking of collecting opportunities and was not willing to fight with Lin Sun before obtaining the opportunities. But who would have thought that the other party would actually target him? I will not rest until I take revenge. Song Fufeng took a deep breath and suppressed the boiling anger and killing intent in his heart. An hour later, Lin Sun and Li Jun's figures floated in the depths of a canyon filled with chaotic aura. Lin Sun activated the time seal and completely covered the canyon. Then he sat on the ground and smiled. Song Fufeng probably hates me to the point of madness. Li Jun also smiled. This is called justice and retribution. Back then, they also ambushed us. As he spoke, he took out a stream of order energy. This was obtained from the Order Beast King. The light rain was dazzling, and it flowed with mysterious order energy fluctuations. It was a complete Heaven Grade 9 order. Quickly refine it. It might help you break through to the Nirvana God Perfect stage. Li Jun said. Lin Sun shook his head. Senior, I'll leave this treasure for you. Over the past 9 years, Li Jun did not want all the order energy he had collected, and Lin Sun already felt bad. Now that he had finally obtained a complete Heaven Grade 9 order, he naturally had to give it to Li Jun. Lin Sun's attitude was firm, and he could not refuse. Seeing this, Li Jun could only accept it. His heart felt warm, and he enjoyed it very much. This kind of treasure was so valuable that even the 10 immortal giants would fight over it. It was far from what the incomplete order energy could compare to. But Lin Sun gave it to him, so how could Li Jun not be touched? P.S. I'll continue to update tonight. Chapter 2952. Li Jun carefully put away the 9th grade heaven rank sequence. Such a complete heavenly order was enough to support a top-notch immortal emperor clan in the 7 heavens regions. Its value was so great that Li Jun was reluctant to refine it. Lin Sun was searching for his loot. What surprised him was that after he killed the 3 powerhouses from the witchcraft cult, he found more than 30 heavenly sequence powers that he had yet to refine among their belongings. After thinking about it, who could refine these order energy with Nirvana order in the shortest amount of time, like Lin Sun? Lin Sun decided to focus on cultivating. For other participants, there were many opportunities in the Earth Demon region that they yearned for. But for Lin Sun, any opportunity couldn't compare to the improvement of his own cultivation. Just like the battle with Song Fufeng, Lin Sun felt great pressure when Song Fufeng used all his trump cards. If Song Fufeng was like that, it was obvious that godsons like Wen Xiao Shui and Yuan Changtian wouldn't be inferior. Lin Sun, all the participants this time have the intention to prove their transcendent realm in the Sky Demon region. I'm no exception. What about you? Do you plan to do the same? Li Jin suddenly asked. Lin Sun pondered. If the time is right, I'll give it a try. He already knew that compared to the Earth Demon region, the Sky Demon region was undoubtedly a more mysterious place. It would only open after a year, and 3 months after opening, it would close again. The Sky Demon region possessed the greatest opportunities in the 10 demonic regions. Legend had it that many eras of deity order energy were buried in this region. The aura that filled the world contained the mysteries of deity order. It was also the most suitable place for Nirvana God realm experts to prove their transcendent realm. The most amazing thing was that those who proved their transcendent realm in the Sky Demon region would be able to sense an opportunity during the retribution. This opportunity was related to the greatest opportunity in the heavenly demon territory. In the past, numerous participants had broken through and attained the Tao in the Sky Devil region for the sake of sensing this strand of critical factor, and from there, they would seek the greatest fortune. In fact, many people had succeeded. However, the creations that were born in the heavenly demon territory were all different. Some were eternal elixirs, some were order spirits, and some are mysterious divine weapons and Taoist treasures. This time, it was extremely likely that a nearly complete divine level order power would be born. This was also why Yuan Changtian, Ji Shanhai, Song Fufeng, Wen Xiao Shui, and other divine children of the ninth heaven also participated in this immortal Tao battle. Because the divine order was too important. It involves the mystery of eternity, and it is often called the eternal order. In the ninth heaven, only the 12 eternal gods have a complete divine order. Similarly, the 4 great ancestral courts each had a type of divine-level sequence power. However, like the other 24 immortal clans in the ninth heaven, although their ancestors have also produced eternal realm characters, the order power in their clans is only an incomplete divine order, also known as demigod order. One could imagine how shocking it would be if the greatest creation born in the heavenly demon territory this time was a suspected complete divine-level sequence power. Of course, this was just people's speculation. Whether such a divine-level sequence would be born in the heavenly demon territory this time, no one was sure. However, this still couldn't stop people's determination to obtain it. Outside the 10 demon territory, in that vast starry sky, the old monsters from the 4 great ancestral courts and the 10 immortal giants have been waiting here for 9 years. At first, they were still leisurely drinking and chatting, but as time passed, they began to close their eyes and meditate. However, every once in a while they would be alarmed. The reason was that so long as a participant perished in the 10th devilish territory, then it would be noticed by these old fellows at the first possible moment. For example, at the beginning of the immortal Tao battle, the old monsters of the 10 immortal giants all had ugly expressions. The reason was that at that time, they noticed that nearly half of the participants who belonged to their camp had died in the 10 demon territory. This caused an uproar among all the old monsters present, and they were extremely shocked. For this reason, Fong Daoping also had a fierce dispute with the old monsters of the 10 immortal giants. Because these old monsters all believed that it was Lin Sun's doing, they did not conceal their hatred and killing intent towards Lin Sun. In the following years, similar situations would occasionally occur. When he noticed Chao Beidu and Yun Tianming's deaths, Fong Daoping also frowned, vaguely guessing something. This also attracted the attention of the other old monsters. However, all this was not as violent as the recent eruption. When they noticed that Wang Ju Huan and the other participants had been completely annihilated, the old monsters of the 10 immortal giants present almost went crazy. They were all furious and stamped their feet. Qing Yun of the Spirit Church, Zhu Wenheng of the Witchcraft Church, and Kasyapa of the Zen Church were also shocked. If all 50 participants had been annihilated by Lin Sun's hands, then how powerful was Lin Sun's combat strength. Not only them, even Fong Daoping was dumbfounded. He could not imagine how Lin Sun had managed to do this. However, the truth was right in front of them, and they had no choice but to accept it. Today, the death of 3 participants from the witchcraft church made Zhu Wenheng's face gloomy. The Immortal Tao battle is about the ranking of the 4 ancestral courts, not about who can kill more opponents. In the past Immortal Tao battles, such a terrible thing has never happened. Zhu Wenheng's voice was low and full of anger. He did not say anything about revenge. However, this made Fong Daoping's heart sink. After more than 9 years, the 10 immortal giants had been enraged, and now the witchcraft church was also enraged. When Lin Sun came back alive from the 10 Devil territory, he was afraid that something unexpected would happen. Casualties are inevitable. It's not like the Immortal Tao battles have never happened in the past. According to the rules, no matter what happens in the 10 Devil territory, the 4 ancestral courts are not allowed to take revenge. Qing Yun of the Spirit Church said indifferently, "Whoever disobeys the rules will be the public enemy of the other ancestral courts." Humph! Zhu Wenheng snorted coldly and said nothing. From the beginning to the end, Cassiopeia did not say a word. Qing Yun and Fong Daoping looked at each other, a faint trace of worry appearing between their eyebrows. Time passed day by day. On the 15th day of meditation in the canyon, Lin Sun woke up from his meditation. His qi was rumbling all over, revealing a perfect and enlightened charm. Li Zhen's eyes lit up, and he said, "Perfection?" He seemed to be more excited than Lin Sun himself. Lin Sun nodded with a smile. More than 9 years, from the early stage of Nirvana realm to the great perfection of the late stage of Nirvana realm. If I did not see it with my own eyes, I would never believe that anyone in this world could achieve such a miracle. Li Zhen sighed. Lin Sun was also full of joy. However, after calculating the order power that he had refined, he knew that it was only natural for his cultivation base to improve by leaps and bounds. Over the years, he had refined close to 500 Earth-rank sequence powers, and he had refined 81 Heaven-rank sequence powers. For any Nirvana realm practitioner who only had half of Lin Sun's order power, they had already reached the great perfection. In addition, the Nirvana order also played an important role. With the refinement of the Nirvana God order, Lin Sun didn't need to refine it himself at all, and he could absorb the purest power of the origin of order. In this way, he was able to achieve several transformations in his cultivation in just 9 years. It could be said that such a miracle of advancement could only be achieved in the 10 Demons territory. That day, Lin Sun and Li Zhen left the canyon and continued to explore the Earth Demons territory. Perhaps because this territory was too vast, Lin Sun and Li Zhen did not encounter any other participants in the following period of time. It was not until the 3rd month after entering the Earth Demons territory that Lin Sun and Li Zhen finally found an Order Beast King. It was a fierce beast that looked like a giant python. Its continuous body was undulating like a mountain ridge, covered with cold scales that glowed coldly. As it breathed, it was like the wind and thunder of the 9th heaven, resounding through the world. The power of this fierce beast was extremely terrifying. It had a 9th rank heaven rank order power that was related to wind and thunder. With a slight shake of its body, thousands of lightning bolts fell from the sky. Each bolt of lightning was formed by order power, and its lethality was shocking. Lin Sun and Li Zhen joined forces and took 7 minutes to kill this fierce beast, obtaining a 9th rank heaven rank order power. This time, Li Zhen did not want it no matter what. Lin Sun had no choice but to keep the order power. After resting for a while, the two of them continued to move forward. During this period of time, in other areas of the Earth Demons territory, when Xiao Shui and his group from the Zen sect, Ji Shanhai and his group from the Spirit sect, Song Fufeng and Hua Xiao from the Witchcraft sect, and Yuan Changtian, who was on his own, all had their own gains. Some had hunted for 9th rank heaven rank order power. Some had found damaged divine rank order fragments. Some had picked up eternal elixirs. To everyone, the Earth Demons territory was a treasure trove, and they spent all their efforts searching for opportunities. Fortunately, the Earth Demon's territory was vast. They split up and went to different places, so it was rare for them to run into each other. Time passed quickly. There was less than a month left before the Heavenly Demon's territory opened. During this period of time, Lin Sun hunted down another Heaven-rank Beast King and obtained 3 fragments of Divine rank order power. He did not see any eternal elixirs. Even so, the gains could be said to be astonishing, including the 9th rank Heaven rank order power that they had snatched from Tsang Fufeng and his group. Lin Sun and Li Jun now had 3 complete 9th rank Heaven rank order power fragments and 3 Divine rank order fragments. In the outside world, this was simply something that no one dared to think about. After the distribution, Lin Sun took 2 9th rank Heaven rank order power fragments and 1 Divine rank order power fragment, while Li Jun obtained 1 9th rank Heaven rank order power fragment and 2 Divine rank order power fragments. On this day, in a vast sea of clouds, Lin Sun, who was flying among them, seemed to sense something. He looked up abruptly and saw what seemed to be a flash of purple light in the depths of a sea of clouds. More updates. Chapter 29:53. The sea of clouds tumbled endlessly. These clouds were formed by the condensation of the power of order. They were colorful and gorgeous. When Lin Sun noticed the flash of purple light, he thought it was an illusion. Just when he and Li Jun were about to move forward, whoosh, the purple light flashed again from the distant sea of clouds. This time, Lin Sun finally saw it clearly. The purple light was a palm-sized, crystal-clear purple gourd, a Tao soldier born in the Earth Demon region. When Lin Sun sensed it carefully, the purple gourd disappeared again. It seems to be a psychic treasure. At this time, Li Jun also noticed the spiritual purple gourd. In the past, there had once been participants that obtained mysterious and unfathomable Tao soldiers from the Earth Devil region, and their might was formidable to the extreme. Lin Sun said, "Then let's wait and see what kind of treasure it is." Time ticked by. After a quarter of an hour, a purple light flashed and swept out of the sea of clouds. It was the crystal-clear purple gourd, shuttling in the sea of clouds like a fish. Tut! Lin Sun grabbed at the gourd in the air. He had used the forbidden passing divine ability for this attack. But unexpectedly, the purple gourd seemed to sense danger. A green lightning rushed out of the gourd's mouth and dissolved Lin Sun's strike with a bang. Then, the purple gourd let out a roar and flew in the void, as if provoking Lin Sun. "Good treasure." Li Jun's eyes lit up. "Let's do it together." As he said, he moved across the void and came to the front of the purple gourd. His sleeves fluttered, and the light interweaved into a golden net of law, covering Li Jun's head. The surface of the purple gourd sprayed out a green light, like a vortex formed by sharp and dense blades, and it easily tore the large net apart. Boom! The surging green light swept across, shaking Li Jun's figure. He was a little embarrassed and had to dodge. He couldn't help but be moved. It was unbelievable that a treasure could shake a nirvana god realm existence like him. What kind of treasure was this purple gourd? Lin Sun in the distance was also quite surprised. The purple gourd had broken his attack containing forbidden passing, and now it could shake Li Jun. It was really incredible. The purple gourd flashed and was about to rush into the depths of the sea of clouds. Lin Sun immediately moved forward and suppressed it with the abyssal sword cauldron. However, this purple gourd was actually extremely crafty. With a bang, it transformed into a strand of purple lightning that was as thin as a strand of hair. It avoided this attack and flashed towards a distance. Lin Sun became more and more surprised and directly chased after him. Such a treasure was absolutely rare to the extreme. It simply seemed to possess intelligence, and it could only be chanced upon by luck. It could be said to be a great fortune that was hard to come by. Boom, boom, boom. On the way, Lin Sun attacked ceaselessly. He utilized various confinement secret techniques, such as palm prints that covered the sky, pagoda, or formation diagrams. The boundless sea of clouds was blasted into pieces, and it shook violently before collapsing and dispersing. It seemed that this kind of power could easily kill the overmatch of the same realm, But to Lin Sun's surprise, the purple gourd dodged every time. It was like a strand of violet lightning that was fearless of the laws of the Grand Tao, and it flickered and fled without end. It was extremely slippery, and it caused Lin Sun to fail repeatedly. Li Jun, who'd followed all along the way, couldn't help but be shocked repeatedly when she saw this, and she grew even more curious about the origins of this treasure. Time passed little by little. This pursuit lasted for nearly a quarter of an hour, covering hundreds of thousands of miles. Lin Sun didn't attack again, and he just chased after it. If he was more curious about the purple gourd before and didn't care much about it, at this moment, his competitive spirit was completely aroused, and he wanted to completely subdue it. Buzz! Suddenly, the purple gourd that was fleeing in the distance produced a strange sound, as if it was summoning something. Then, in the depths of the sea of clouds in the distance, a shimmering violet divine light suddenly emerged, tearing the sea of clouds in the sky, and blasted towards Lin Sun. Lin Sun's black eyes showed a strange expression, and he used Abyssal Sword Cauldron to resist it. Boom! When the violet divine light blasted, it suddenly turned into turbid thunder and lightning, densely packed, and the Abyssal Sword Cauldron buzzed. The violent destructive power made Lin Sun gasp. Such an attack power was comparable to that of a peerless figure like Song Fufeng. But in the end, all these attacks collapsed in front of the Abyssal Sword Cauldron. Only then did Lin Sun see that beside the purple gourd, there was a palm-sized turbid and obscure green gourd, as if it was carved from the same mold. One purple and the other green. The former was crystal clear, and the latter was dark and dull. Standing side by side in the sea of clouds, they were like a pair of psychic, peerless overlords. The most amazing thing was that the power released by the purple gourd was a kind of blazing and overbearing green thunderbolt, while the power released by the green gourd was a turbid and gloomy purple thunderbolt. This was too amazing. Even Li Jun couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, and said, "This is a pair?" In the distance, the purple gourd seemed to have found a backer, and it no longer fled. It flew in the sea of clouds, and the green light flowed menacingly, as if it was going to counterattack. On the green gourd, there was also an obscure and turbid aura of destruction surging. Interesting, Lin Sun laughed. After cultivating for so many years, it was indeed the first time he encountered such a pair of magical treasures that were so psychic. Boom! The purple gourd and the green gourd moved at the same time. A ray of green light and a ray of purple light rushed out of the mouth of the two gourds respectively, and merged in the void, turning into a pair of magic swords. The purple sword was turbid and strong, and the green sword was crystal clear and ethereal. The sword chi of the two was so strong that it tore the sea of clouds and penetrated the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Vaguely, there seemed to be an ancient and vast sword sound resounding through the universe. Li Jun felt a tingling pain on his skin, and he couldn't help but be frightened, and said, "Be careful." When this pair of treasures was separated, their power was already terrible. When they attacked together, it broke out a terrifying power beyond imagination. That kind of aura was even not inferior to the existence of the transcendent realm. But Lin Sun didn't dodge. He stretched out his right hand and hooked his finger at the purple gourd. It was full of provocation. Boom! Boom! Immediately, the two magic swords chopped down. The green sword was ethereal and fierce. When the sword chopped out, it was like the sky was pressing down. And the purple sword was like the vast earth, vigorous and condensed, as if the boundless territory was swung by the sword and struck horizontally. When the two swords chopped down, it was like the heaven and earth were attacking together, trying to kill Lin Sun, who stood between heaven and earth. It was really incredible. Lin Sun's clothes and black hair fluttered in the wind. He also felt the oppressive aura that even Song Fufeng couldn't bring to him. This made Lin Sun's eyes brighten. Without hesitation, he displayed the Gate of Exile. Boom! Cracks in space and time appeared, spreading to thousands of miles. The Gate of Exile was like the gate to hell opened at this moment, deep and obscure. Whoosh! Whoosh! When the two unbelievably powerful sword chi chopped down, they were silently swallowed by the gate of exile, without causing a ripple. At the same time, the purple and green gourds seemed to sense something was wrong. They let out a roar and wanted to escape, but it was a step too late. In the area covered by the gate of exile, the power of time and space intertwined, making them feel like they were trapped in a swamp. Then, they were dragged by the horrifying, devouring power released by the gate of exile, swept into the gate of exile uncontrollably, and soon disappeared. Done. Lin Sun smiled. Originally, he only had his eyes on the purple gourd. Who would have thought that there would be a green gourd in the end? This was undoubtedly a pleasant surprise, and it also allowed him to harvest 2 treasures for his long-awaited strike. It was like picking up a big bargain. How could Lin Sun not be happy? He asked himself honestly, facing this pair of gourd treasures, there was almost no hope of subduing them with his own strength. They were full of spirituality and were not afraid of the power of law. Even the sword cauldron couldn't do anything to them. If he didn't use the gate of exile, it would be impossible to subdue them so easily. Watch out! Suddenly, Li Zhen's voice sounded, full of surprise and anger. Almost at the same time, a bone-chilling sense of danger stimulated Lin Sun like a sharp blade. Almost out of instinct, he released the abyssal sword cauldron to defend himself. Clang! The sword cauldron vibrated violently, and a cold and terrifying impact spread out. Lin Sun staggered and almost coughed up blood. A pitch-black halberd smashed into the sword cauldron. The owner of the halberd was a man in blue robes. He was handsome like jade and stood out from the crowd. It was when Xiao Shui, the divine son of the One clan. But at this moment, when Xiao Shui didn't have that temperament that was gentle like water since a long time ago. His entire body was coiled with numerous eternal laws that seemed like pages of a book, and every single page was branded with profound and unfathomable markings of the Grand Tao. It caused his bearing to seem like a god that controlled the heavenly book. Seeing that this blow was blocked by Lin Sun, when Xiao Shui couldn't help but be a little surprised. Taoism Pure Lin is really extraordinary. Boom! As he spoke, the black halberd in his hand blasted out again. This black halberd was obviously also a great treasure. It was 12 feet long, as thick as a child's arm, and the ink-like surface of the halberd was inscribed with 2 ancient characters, Jiahuang. When the halberd was chopped out, it was like a guillotine which seemed to be able to split heaven and earth, mountains and rivers, and all things in the world. It was so fierce that it made people tremble. But this time, Lin Sun was prepared. How could he be beaten passively? He took a deep breath, and his whole body shone. His eyes were terrifyingly cold. While the sword cauldron bombarded the halberd, he directly took out the Taoism sword and slashed out angrily. The two immediately fought with each other, causing the atmosphere within 1,000 miles to suddenly explode and turn into nothingness. The terrible divine light swept out, the world trembled, and the wind and clouds changed color. When Xiao Shui's expression also became dignified, Lin Sun's attack was so powerful that it was beyond his imagination. He had to use all his strength to resist the attack. But just a moment later, Lin Sun frowned. Not far away, Li Zhen was besieged by the 4 Buddha lords of the Zen sect. It should be known that the 4 Buddha lords, Ku Xian, Ku Ji, Zhu Wan, and Zhu Zhen, were no weaker than Li Zhen. How could Li Zhen resist them when they besieged him with all their strength? Suddenly, he fell into a dangerous situation. P.S. Khan, a little later. Chapter 29:54. The sky was shaking. The killing came so abruptly that Lin Sun was attacked when he was unprepared. Lin Sun was not angry about this. In the 10 Directions magic territory, sneak attacks and being attacked often happened. However, when Lin Sun saw Li Zhen in a tight encirclement, he couldn't help but be angry. Boom! In the battle, Lin Sun did not hesitate to display the 5 Tao bodies, intending to rescue Li Zhen. But at this moment, when Xiao Shui smiled and said, "Taoism Pure Lin, your opponent is me." As soon as the voice sounded, in the nearby area, enormous golden stone pillars suddenly rushed out one after another, sealing off the world. Every single stone pillar was covered in mysterious Tao diagrams, and there were flowers, birds, insects, fish, the sun, moon, and stars, as well as the phenomena of the universe and the geography of the world. There were a total of 72 stone pillars, forming a grand and strict prohibition formation, blocking the heaven and earth. Sky ceiling divine prohibition. It was an order prohibition of eternal god clans, one family. It was derived from a complete ninth-level order of heaven rank and contained natural prohibition formation law. Once such a prohibition formation was launched, even a transcendent realm expert would be trapped, and it would be extremely difficult for him to get out. Boom! The prohibition formation glowed, and the golden light of the stone pillars evaporated, sealing the heaven and earth. Lin Sun's 5 Tao bodies were suddenly blocked. Even if he attacked with all his strength, it could only cause a violent fluctuation in the prohibition formation. It couldn't be broken for a while. Seeing this, Lin Sun's face darkened. It seems that you have been planning for a long time and came prepared. One Xiao Shui smiled and said, "To deal with Taoism, Pure Lin, we must prepare for a rainy day and make a thorough layout. Otherwise, it is very easy to fail miserably." He looked very calm and confident, but the meaning of his words showed that in order to deal with Lin Sun this time, he, the Son of God, had also planned for a long time before he launched such a surprise attack. Boom! The 5 Tao bodies rushed over and attacked together with Lin Sun, intending to finish the battle quickly and completely suppress Wen Xiao Shui. But who would have thought that when Xiao Shui's figure burst like a bubble and disappeared without a trace? Lin Sun's eyes suddenly narrowed. Ha ha! When Xiao Shui's laughter resounded outside the sealed heaven divine restriction. Brother Lin, this is the supreme inheritance of my Wen clan, stealing the sky for the sun. It's a mystery comprehended from the true divine order. Not to mention you, even an eternal realm expert is likely to be deceived. Lin Sun looked out of the ceiling heaven-forbidden ground and saw Wen Xiao Shui in a blue robe, talking and laughing at ease, as if he had already won. On the other side, Li Jun was covered in injuries, and his entire body was dyed red with blood. The expressions of the 4 Buddhist lords were solemn, and their bodies were shrouded in Buddhist light. When they attacked, they didn't have the slightest bit of mercy, and each was fiercer and fiercer than the last. Even if Li Jun used all her methods, she could only bitterly hold on. Seeing this scene, Lin Sun's black eyes were full of killing intent. Since your target is me, why do you still embarrass the elders of Yuan Church? Brother Lin, don't worry. I won't kill him. After all, there's no enmity between us. However, I'm afraid that Elder Li Jun will be accompanying me for a period of time from today onwards. When Xiao Shui smiled and said, "What do you want?" Lin Sun asked, and his eyes became colder. It's very simple. Soon, the heavenly demon territory will open. I hope that Taoism Pure Lin can help me restrain some opponents when we compete for the greatest fortune. As when Xiao Shui spoke, he waved his hand and said, "Everyone, rest a little. Don't let Elder Li Jun's injuries be too severe. In this way, I'm afraid fellow Taoist Lin will hate me to the core." Sure enough, the 4 Buddhist lords changed their fighting style. They trapped Li Jun instead of killing him, and their attacks became restrained. This gave Li Jun a chance to catch her breath. However, he was already seriously injured, and his body was dyed with blood. Under such circumstances, there was no chance for him to make a comeback. "Lin Sun, just give it your all. Don't worry about me." Li Jun shouted. He was ready to die. "Elder Li Jun, I won't let you die." When Xiao Shui said indifferently, "Not even suicide." With a flick of his sleeve, a glowing white jade pagoda soared into the sky and emitted countless ripples of Tao light. In an instant, Li Jun, who was already trapped, was firmly confined. The white jade pagoda floated above his head, and the energy it emitted made him unable to even lift a finger. How about it? Taoism Pure Lin, have you thought it through? When Xiao Shui looked at Lin Sun again, Lin Sun said, "Threatening others with their lives? Is this the style of a divine son like you?" When Xiao Shui shook his head and said, If it were someone else, I would have killed him directly. There is no need for such deliberate preparation at all. Only you are different. Wang Juhuan and the others were well prepared, but in the end, they were all wiped out by you. Song Fufeng is violent and ruthless. He is also a top figure among the divine sons in the ninth heaven, but he suffered a big loss under your hands. He paused for a moment and said with a smile, "So, I don't dare underestimate you at all. After thinking about it, the only person that can restrain you is elderly Zhen, and that's why I came up with this plan. Why don't you go to my senior brother Moon and Well?" Lin Sun asked. When Xiao Shui's eyes became subtle, "I originally planned to do so, but if I did so, Miss Shanghai would not stand by and do nothing. I admire Miss Shanghai very much, so I could only give up this plan." Lin Sun was silent for a while. When Xiao Shui was well prepared, he also knew that Lin Sun's weakness was Li Zhen. As long as Li Zhen was captured, he could threaten Lin Sun. This was undoubtedly an extremely smart approach. Looking at the current situation, whether it was stealing sky or sealing sky restriction, when Xiao Shui did not intend to fight with Lin Sun from beginning to end. His purpose was very simple, to coerce Lin Sun to work for him. Taoism Pure Lin, the Earth Demon region is vast and boundless. It's futile for you to delay time. As long as elderly Zhen is in my hands, there will be no more variables. When Xiao Shui's voice was casual, with confidence and disdain between his eyebrows, Lin Sun suddenly laughed. "Really?" Boom! The abyssal sword cauldron roared and slammed into a stone pillar that was emitting golden light. It's useless seeing this when Xiao Shui was about to say this, but the words were forcibly swallowed back. His face suddenly changed. Crack! The gigantic golden stone pillar that towered into the sky was smashed into pieces, and the ninth-grade heaven-rank sequence power that enveloped it dissipated. This was the reason why, when Xiao Shui's face changed, sealing sky restriction was formed by the ninth-grade heaven-rank order. Its power was unpredictable, and it was full of natural restriction patterns. It was enough to trap a transcendent realm figure. But now, Lin Sun easily smashed a hole in it. Under shock, when Xiao Shui showed an extremely terrifying reaction ability. His first action was not to stop Lin Sun, who rushed out, but to turn around and rush towards Li Zhen, threatening him with Li Zhen's life. With only a distance of 10 feet, when Xiao Shui was confident that he could hold Li Zhen, who had long been imprisoned by the pagoda, and turn the tables. However, at this moment, a cyan long spear suddenly appeared out of thin air, and the tip of the spear stabbed towards Lin Sun with unparalleled momentum. Crack! The white jade pagoda, floating above Li Zhen's head, was directly pierced, bursting into pieces like a paper paste. The cyan spear's momentum did not diminish, and it rushed towards Wen Xiao Shui with a dazzling light. This unexpected change made Wen Xiao Shui's face change completely, and he lost his voice. "Miss Shanghai!" Boom! He waved a 9 wild halberd in his hand to block. Although he blocked this stab, his whole body was shaken back a few steps, and his aura was tumbling. At the same time, Ji Shanhai's figure appeared beside Li Zhen, grabbed her, and took her away. As for the 4 Buddhist lords, they'd been surrounding Li Zhen since the beginning. Yet when they suffered such a shocking turn of events, they only had the time to dodge, and they could only watch helplessly as Ji Shanhai left a trail of dust in the air as he charged into the battlefield and rescued Li Zhen. Everything happened too fast. From Lin Sun breaking the restriction to Ji Shanhai rushing out to rescue Li Zhen, it happened almost at the same time. It was incredibly fast, and such a shocking change also completely shattered Wen Xiao Shui's plan and made his painstaking efforts go down the drain. "Miss Shanghai, how could it be you?" Wen Xiao Shui could not be as calm as before, and his face was full of surprise and doubt. "Why can't it be me?" Ji Shanhai looked calm and said, "Using a hostage to threaten others, you, Wen Xiao Shui, have lost the face of your own clan." Boom! In the distance, Lin Sun had already rushed over, and he did not hide the killing intent in his heart. When Xiao Shui used Li Zhen's life to threaten Lin Sun, which violated his taboo, his figure glowed, and his momentum was like that of a god. The abyssal sword cauldron was filled with hundreds of millions of rays of light. Under this blow, Wen Xiaoshui's figure once again collapsed and disappeared like a bubble. And in a place far away, Wen Xiaoshui's figure emerged. His face was gloomy, and he looked at Lin Sun, and then looked at Ji Shanhai, and sighed. It turns out that you have already formed an alliance. I didn't expect that a person like Miss Shanhai would hang out with the successor of Feng Xiyuan. If this gets back to the ninth heaven, I don't know what people will think. Forget it, since the plan has failed, I admit defeat, and I will leave. His voice was still echoing, and he had already swept away. He left without even caring about the 4 Buddha lords of Zen sect. Just as Lin Sun was about to chase after him, Ji Shanhai stopped him. You can't catch up with him. This person has mastered the secret method of stealing Sun of one clan. If he wants to escape, no one can stop him. Lin Sun frowned. Can't he be restrained? Ji Shanhai said, this secret technique is imprinted with the power of the One God clan's divine order, the realm of the empty God. Only those who have reached the eternal realm can see through its true form and break its secret technique. However, with Wen Xiaoshui's cultivation, every time he uses the stealing sun, he will suffer a backlash. If he uses it too many times, he will be possessed by the devil and burn himself playing with fire. Therefore, he doesn't dare to use it easily unless it's crucial. Only then did Lin Sun understand. Then, he looked at the 4 Buddha lords of Zen sect. Wen Xiaoshui escaped alone, but the 4 Buddha lords didn't do so. It was not that they didn't want to, but they didn't dare to, because there was Lin Sun in front and Ji Shanhai behind, so they had no way to escape. However, even at this point, the 4 Buddhist lords' expressions remained calm and solemn. They didn't reveal a trace of panic, which showed how strong their minds were. In other words, they were ready to fight to the death. Miss Shanhai, please help me take care of Li Jun. I will deal with these 4 old bald donkeys. Lin Sun said casually and stepped forward, his eyes like a cold abyss. Thank you, brother Awatara, for the monthly ticket of the chief. It's a little late today, and Goldfish will celebrate the new chief tomorrow. Chapter 2955. Ji Shanhai took Li Jun far away. She could see that Lin Sun was like a beast whose reverse scale had been touched. He needed to vent his anger and killing intent. Ku Xian and the rest were even calmer when they saw this scene. As Buddhist lords, each of them had lived for countless years and witnessed the ups and downs of the world. In terms of talent, they might not be as talented as Lin Sun and Wen Xiaoshui. However, their reserves had already been tempered through the baptism of countless storms and blood, and they were confident that they still had the strength to fight. In fact, any one of them can easily suppress some of the immortal emperor clans in the 7th heaven. Seeing Lin Sun charging at them, the 4 Buddhist lords' auras surged. Buddha's light was like a vast ocean covering the sky and earth. Without hesitation, they attacked together. The alms bowl, the prayer beads, the monastic ruler, the Buddhist staff, and all the other treasures in the air released a powerful and boundless power. The surging Buddhist light spread out, and one could vaguely see the silhouettes of countless Buddhas emerging. The vast sound of Sanskrit chanting resounded, and the sky and the earth were in chaos. The world shook, and the mountains and rivers trembled. That kind of power that was gathered and released was simply despairing. Lin Sun did not dodge. He directly rushed up, and the 5 avatars moved together like a group of angry gods. Boom! The battle broke out. This time, Lin Sun didn't even utilize the abyssal sword cauldron, and he was barehanded. However, every single strike of his carried a supreme force that was capable of shocking the ages, and it contained the profound and unfathomable might of the laws, causing it to be boundlessly terrifying. Crack! In just a few blinks of an eye, the staff in Zhu Wen's hand was crushed by the dense sword chi. Fragments splashed everywhere, and his figure was engulfed by a monstrous cloud of fire. His invincible body melted at a speed visible to the naked eye, turning into ashes in the blink of an eye. This made Ku Xian and the rest look grave, and their state of mind was impacted. In the real battle, they deeply understood how terrifying Lin Sun's cultivation was. They were all in the Nirvana realm, but Lin Sun gave them a feeling that he was unshakable. Any dharma, any treasure, would be easily destroyed by him. On the other hand, his 5 great Tao bodies possessed a strength that wasn't inferior to his main body, and they attacked together, causing them to instantly feel as if they'd fallen into a tempestuous storm and they had nowhere to dodge or retreat to. Bang! A string of black prayer beads scattered in the void. Almost at the same time, a strand of sword chi flashed. Zhu Zhan's pupils constricted. He said bitterly, "Is this the potential of an immortal supreme? It really isn't something we can reach." His voice was still drifting in the air when his figure was suddenly split into 2. The 2 halves of his body were instantly crushed by the violent torrent of battle, and his soul scattered. At this moment, Ku Xian and Ku Ji were in a perilous situation. Under the joint attacks of the 5 great Tao bodies, they'd already suffered repeated injuries and were ceaselessly coughing up blood. However, their gazes were still extremely calm, and there was no panic or fear, treating life and death as nothing. Unfortunately, Lin Sun, who'd attained perfection in his cultivation, could be considered as an exalt on the path towards the eternal Tao, and he was utterly not someone they could go against. Soon, Ku Ji also suffered. The ruler in his hand was smashed by Lin Sun, and his head was twisted off. His death was miserable and unbearable. Not long after, Ku Xian also fell. He was directly beaten to death by Lin Sun and his 5 doppelgangers. Before he died, he could only let out a long, unwilling sigh. At this point, the 4 Buddhist lords of the ancestral court of the Zen sect who participated in the eternal Tao battle had all fallen here. The world was filled with the stench of blood, and there were scenes of destruction everywhere. Lin Sun put away his doppelgangers and took a deep breath. Only then did the anger in his heart dissipate. This is the immortal supreme power that the master of the heart core has been waiting for. Ji Shanhai walked over from afar. Her clear eyes were like water, and there was a hint of surprise in them. She had seen the entire battle earlier, and keenly sensed that Lin Sun's cultivation was completely different. 3 years ago, she and Lin Sun had an invisible competition near the Earth Demon Abyss. At that time, although Lin Sun was only in the late stage of the Nirvana realm, his combat strength could be said to be extremely heaven-defying. Lin Sun today was much stronger than back then. In fact, she couldn't even estimate how strong Lin Sun was right now. No matter how strong I am, I couldn't save Senior Li Jun in time just now. Instead, Miss Shanhai came in time and helped me resolve a difficult situation. Lin Sun sighed softly. Thinking of everything that happened before, he couldn't be happy. While talking, he told Li Jun to recuperate on the spot. The latter's injuries were too severe, and it made Lin Sun worried. Seeing that Li Jun had started meditating, Ji Shanhai said, "When Xiao Shui is scheming against an unsuspecting person, not to mention you, even a transcendent realm expert, would fail miserably." She saw Wen Xiao Shui's actions and knew how Lin Sun was trapped. It was very simple. When Xiao Shui came prepared, the Sealing Sky Godly Prohibition was one of the Wen family's 3 godly prohibitions. It was enough to trap a transcendent realm existence. The Sky's Stealing Inheritance was another forbidden technique. When Xiao Shui had used it twice, although he suffered from the backlash, he had successfully avoided the possibility of fighting Lin Sun head-on twice. From the beginning, when Xiao Shui's target wasn't Lin Sun, under such a scheme, even if Lin Sun had the immortal supreme power, how could he protect Li Jun? At the end of the day, this was not a head-on battle, but a meticulously planned surprise attack. On the other hand, if he could suppress Lin Sun head-on with confidence, why would Wen Xiao Shui go through so much trouble? In Ji Shanhai's view, Wen Xiao Shui was indeed very smart. If he dared to fight Lin Sun head-on, it was very likely that he would be defeated in the end. Anyway, I really have to thank you this time. Lin Sun cupped his hands and thanked her. Ji Shanhai said softly, "I just happened to notice the battle fluctuations here. What's more, Helping you is also helping my sister. Lin Sun nodded. After chatting for a while, Ji Shanhai turned around and left. She still had to meet up with the people of the spiritual sect. Watching her graceful figure disappear, Lin Sun thought in his heart, was it really a coincidence? After a while, Lin Sun shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He directly cast the time seal, covering the nearby area. Then he sat cross-legged on the ground and meditated quietly. Previously, in order to subdue the purple and green gourd, he had consumed a lot of physical strength. He even cast the banishment gate, so that when facing Wen Xiao Shui and others who suddenly attacked, he had consumed more than half of his physical strength. Until now, he cast the time seal again, and his cultivation was almost exhausted. Fortunately, the situation was safe now, and there was no need to worry about any accidents. Lin Sun planned to enter the banishment realm when his cultivation recovered to see what mysteries were hidden in the pair of purple and green gourds. Outside the 10 Directions Devil territory, in that starry sky, Buddha Kasyapa frowned a little, and his calm face was faintly covered with a touch of haze. He noticed that the 4 Buddha lords, Ku Ji, Ku Xian, Ju Wan, and Ju Zhen, had died. The casualties were more severe than those of the witchcraft sect. At least on the side of the witchcraft sect, in addition to Tsang Fufeng, there was still Hua Xiao alive. On the side of the Zen sect, only Wen Trao Shui was left. The most important thing was that, strictly speaking, Wen Xiao Shui was not the real successor of the Zen sect. This made Kasyapa's Zen heart, as firm as a rock, uncontrollably give birth to a trace of killing intent. Fellow Taoism Kasyapa, did something happen? Zhu Wanheng, the priest of the witchcraft sect, asked in a deep voice. Kasyapa put his palms together and said with a sad look, just now, the 4 Buddha lords of our Zen sect were unfortunately killed. The scene was immediately alarmed. The eyes of the old monsters flickered, and their expressions were different. It's less than a month before the opening of the heavenly demon territory. It's really a pity that there are such heavy casualties at this time. Zhu Wenheng sighed. It must be Lin Sun's doing. The big shots of the 10 immortal giants spoke one after another, pointing the spearhead at Lin Sun. All the participants of the 10 forces were wiped out, and you said it was Lin Sun's doing. 3 participants of the witchcraft sect died, and you said it was Lin Sun's doing. Now 4 participants of the Zen sect also died, and you said it was Lin Sun's doing. Fong Daoping glanced at those old monsters coldly. Are you suffering from some kind of persecution paranoia? His words made those old monsters' faces gloomy. You don't need to argue anymore. From now until the opening of the heavenly demon territory to the end of the immortal Tao battle, there are only less than 4 months left. Zhu Wanheng said indifferently. At that time, you will naturally know what happened in the past 10 years. Fong Daoping's heart sank. Spiritual Master Qing Yun's voice sounded in his ears. Brother Fong, you have to be prepared in advance. Fong Daoping nodded. 2 days later, in the Earth Demon territory, inside the time boundary, Li Zhen was still meditating, while Lin Sun used the door of exile and swept into it. In the vast gray world, Lin Sun's figure moved quickly, passing the area where the corpse executioner's disc was located, and came to the treasure cliff. The treasure cliff rule covered this place. On the edge of the cliff, 2 palm-sized gourds, one purple and one green, were suspended. The former was crystal clear, and the latter was obscure, reflecting each other beautifully. However, the 2 gourds looked very pitiful, like prisoners without the arrogance they had before. Seeing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but smile and stretched out his hand. Whoosh! The purple gourd fell into his palm. It struggled violently, but to no avail because this was the exile world, Lin Sun's territory. Even the treasure cliff rule could be used by Lin Sun. Lin Sun stared carefully for a moment and gently poked the purple gourd with his finger. The latter suddenly seemed to be irritated, and a green sword rushed out of the mouth of the gourd. This sword was ethereal, clear, sharp, and dazzling. Just the aura it emitted made Lin Sun's eyes feel a faint sting. As soon as the green sword came out, It was about to cut Lin Sun, but it was firmly suppressed by the Treasure Cliff rule. The purple gourd seemed to be extremely angry, and it roared violently, as if it was shouting. Lin Sun was stunned at this moment. Only now did he notice that this green-colored divine sword was actually formed from a strand of complete and pure energy of order. Moreover, this treasure was so psychic. Did this mean that the purple gourd and the green sword nurtured by it were a rare 9th-level order of heaven rank? Chapter 29:56. While thinking, Lin Sun raised his hand and waved. Whoosh! The green gourd also fell into his palm, crystal clear. Like the purple gourd, it was unwilling to be suppressed and kept struggling. Lin Sun poked it gently with his finger. It flew into a rage, spitting out a purple sword. It was as heavy as the earth, exuding a desolate aura. Like the green sword, the purple sword was obviously formed by the pure and complete power of order. Thinking of this, Lin Sun immediately took out the abyssal sword cauldron and suppressed the pair of gourds in it. Boom! In the sword cauldron, the order of nirvana emerged like a blooming lotus, suppressing the purple gourd. The two released the purple and green swords to fight against it, producing a fierce roar of power. It was a fight between the power of order. It was the first time Lin Sun saw such a fight. In the past, the order of nirvana could easily suppress any kind of power of order. But now it couldn't subdue the purple and green gourd immediately. Interesting. Lin Sun had a strange look in his eyes. He had concluded that the pair of purple and green gourds were undoubtedly formed by the power of order. It was very likely to be a rare 9th grade heaven rank order, possessing the spirit of order. However, he still didn't know what kind of mystery was hidden in this order. Boom! The sword cauldron roared, as if an unprecedented battle was taking place inside, making a great noise. But just a moment later, the violent noise gradually quieted down. Inside the sword cauldron, there were only two light shadows, one purple and one green, intertwining with each other, appearing extremely docile. At the same time, Wu Shuang said with a clear voice with amazement, "Master, these are two rare 9th grade orders, containing the mysteries of clear and turbid, yin and yang, light and darkness. And when the power of the two is combined, the power is far stronger than the ordinary spirit of order." Sure enough, Lin Sun couldn't hide the joy in his heart. It could be said that this was definitely the greatest fortune he had obtained in the Earth Demon region, far more than a 9th grade heaven rank or the divine rank fragment. Why can't they develop wisdom like you? Lin Sun asked. Wu Shuang blinked her big eyes and said in a clear voice, "Master, some of the spirits of order in this world can turn into Taoist soldiers, and some can turn into birds and beasts, but very few can manifest in a human form like me." His voice was filled with pride. She was the spirit of order of the heaven Tao of the Genesis world, and she'd survived the calamity of the end of eras. If her quintessence wasn't severely damaged, then the might she possessed would absolutely be above an ordinary spirit of order. I see. Lin Sun recalled that when he was in the Chaos Demon Sea, the spirit of order that Mo Lanshan took away was in the form of a black giant axe. This restriction belonged to Sky Origin Pavilion Master Yanji. Obviously, this pair of purple-green gourds were also spirits of order. "Master, this pair of gourds has been subdued. What do you plan to do with them?" Wu Shuang asked eagerly, her clear eyes filled with desire. Lin Sun saw through her mind at a glance and said, "I can't let you eat these treasures. They're still of great use." Hearing this, the purple and green lights danced happily, as if they agreed with Lin Sun's words. Wu Shuang felt extremely regretful and said, "Master, if I refine them, I will definitely be able to recover to my previous peak state." Lin Sun thought for a while, then threw a 9th-level heaven-ranked order energy to Wu Shuang and said, "This is for you. Is it okay?" This was the order energy subdued in the Earth Demon region, and there were two of them. Lin Sun planned to use it when he reached the Transcendent Realm. However, now that he had this pair of purple-green gourds, Lin Sun didn't care about it anymore. Wu Shuang was instantly surprised and smiled sweetly. "Thank you, Master." Master treats Wushuang the best. A complete, ninth level heaven ranked order energy was priceless. It was enough to make the 10 immortal magnates fight for it. Wushuang, what do you think I should do with them? Lin Sun asked while rubbing his chin. Master, it would be a waste if you refine these spirits of order. Master can carry them with you, and you can use their power to kill your enemies during battles. Wushuang said, however, their greatest use is to protect a domain or a clan. With them around, even transcendent realm existences can only stop. Lin Sun recalled the experience of subduing this pair of purple-green gourds and couldn't help but nod. He was already a nirvana, great perfection cultivator. He was invincible in the same realm, just like the Supreme on the immortal path. However, when he chased after the purple-green gourds, he repeatedly failed. Moreover, when the purple-green gourds fought together, the power they released made him feel pressured and threatened. This was not simple at all. In the end, Lin Sun used the Gate of Exile to collect this pair of treasures. Wushuang's words reminded Lin Sun of the 10 immortal magnates that stood in the 8th heaven since ancient times. Each of them relied on a rare 9th level heaven-ranked order energy to survive until now. The clansmen of these clans were protected by this order energy since childhood. Whether it was cultivation or enlightenment, they could obtain unexpected benefits from it. It could be said that it was these rare 9th level heaven-ranked order energy that supported the foundation of the immortal magnates. All of this meant that the existence of the purple-green gourds was enough for Lin Sun to create a huge force that was not inferior to the 10 immortal magnates. Thinking of this, Lin Sun's eyes revealed a strange expression. In addition to the purple-green gourds, his abyssal sword cauldron also had Wushuang, Little Ming, and Little Xian. More importantly, there was the Nirvana Order. All of this would become his trump card when he went to the 8th and 9th heaven in the future, in the space-time enchantment. When Lin Sun's figure walked out of the Gate of Exile, there was a cyan gourd hanging on his waist. It was crystal clear, as if it was made of fine jade. Lin Sun named it Little Qing. If Little Qing really had wisdom and feelings, he was afraid that Wushuang would have a conflict with this name. But Lin Sun named it this way. For example, he named the Netherworld Order Little Ming, the Immortal Order Little Xian. Fortunately, Wushuang manifested a human form and could derive wisdom from the order energy. Moreover, she already had a name. Otherwise, Lin Sun didn't know what kind of name he would give her. Li Jun was still cultivating, so Lin Sun didn't disturb him. He sat alone on the side and took out a divine-level order fragment. The divine-level order was related to the mystery of eternity, so is also called the Eternal Order. It was rumored that it was because of the divine-level order that the gods of the 9th heaven had the confidence and strength to resist the destruction of the era. The divine-level order fragment in Lin Sun's hand was the size of a copper coin. It was completely black, but the aura it exuded was extremely extraordinary. Although the Great Tao Order was fragmented and couldn't comprehend any of its mysteries, seeing it reminded Lin Sun of the obliteration rules and treasure drop rules in the Gate of Exile. In other words, the aura of this divine-level order fragment was extremely similar to the power of rules. The rumors are true. A complete divine-level order is originally a type of the rules of heaven and earth. It is the manifestation of the power of rules. Lin Sun understood in his heart. After thinking about it, he put away the divine-level order fragment. According to Li Jun, for any existence in the Nirvana realm of great perfection, no matter if it was a Heaven Level 9 order or a divine-level order fragment, it could be regarded as a supreme treasure to prove one's Tao and break through the realm. In other words, such a treasure could play an immeasurable role when proving one's Tao and transcendent realm. Next, Lin Sun didn't think anymore. He closed his eyes and began to meditate. More than 20 days later, boom! A sound similar to the beginning of chaos resounded in the sky above the Earth Demon region, causing the heavens and earth to tremble and the mountains and rivers to rustle. At this moment, the participants scattered in different parts of the Earth Demon region stopped what they were doing and looked towards the sky. Extremely high up in the sky, countless strange and dazzling images of light surged into appearance, and it seemed as if countless worlds were intersecting and changing. Gradually, these densely packed lights and shadows gathered together, turning into a passageway with a chaotic luster, falling straight down from the sky. Heaven connecting path. In the depths of a vast ocean, Yuan Changtian raised his head, and a fiery look flashed through his eyes. The heaven connecting path was the path to the sky demon region. Whoosh! In the next moment, his figure disappeared into thin air. The sky demon region has finally opened in a vast and boundless forest. Song Fufeng's eyes were burning like flames. After proving one's Tao and transcendent realm, I must kill Lin's son. Hatred surged in his heart. Beside him, Hua Zhao's eyes were burning with passion. Lord Song, does the sky demon region really have a complete divine level order? Won't we know when we get there? As he spoke, Song Fufeng had already risen into the sky. Hua Zhao hurriedly followed. There are only 3 months left before the sky demon region opens. Lin's son, you might have the supreme power of this realm, but can you prove your Tao and transcendent realm in the sky demon region? In a great, barren land, when Xiao Shui stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes flickering, a god's son like him had already settled in the nirvana god great perfection realm for many years, and had the foundation to prove his Tao and transcendent realm. As long as he reached the sky demon region, he had absolute confidence that he could break through the transcendent realm. Under such circumstances, how could Lin's son fight against them? Unless Lin's son also proved his Tao and transcendent realm. But was that possible? In 10 years, he had broken through from the nirvana god early stage to the nirvana god great perfection realm. His speed was so fast that it was unparalleled. Even in the myriad of worlds in the universe, it could be said to be a unique miracle. However, without the accumulation and polishing, how could he have any hope of proving his Tao and transcendent realm? While he was thinking, Wen Xiao Shui had also started to move. Let's go too. Ji Shanhai stretched her body, and her graceful figure drew a seductive arc. As she spoke, she had already taken action. Jing Zhongyu, Pu Songzi, and the others followed her. In the past 10 years, the other forces had suffered casualties, but the spiritual sect was the only one that remained unscathed. Needless to say, this was closely related to Ji Shanhai. No one was willing to make an enemy out of a transcendent goddess like her. On the same day, Lin Sun and Li Jun, who had completely recovered from their injuries, embarked on their journey to the sky demon region. From this moment onwards, there were only 3 months left before the immortal discourse of doctrine ended. There will be additional updates at night. Chapter 2957, Sky Demon Territory. On the peak of a mountain, Lin Sun felt the aura of the rules between heaven and earth. He couldn't help but be moved. It's too strong. In the earth demon territory, a nirvana god realm could destroy a mountain with a single blow. But in the sky demon territory, such a blow could only destroy a mountain at best. The reason was that the power of rules in this world was extremely strong, which made the mountains, rivers, and everything else different. Unlike other demon territories, the sky demon territory was filled with an aura that belonged to the origin of order. This was simply unimaginable. Any power of order could only become order origin after it was completely refined. But in the sky demon territory, the world was filled with the aura of order origin, which undoubtedly meant that one could directly absorb the power of order origin by cultivating in this world. It's no wonder that all the participants who had the opportunity to enter the sky demon region would choose to prove their transcendent realm in this world. This place is indeed unusual. Lin Sun secretly sighed. However, he also knew that divine sons like Yuan Changtian and Song Fufeng didn't want to break through the realm in this world. Instead, they wanted to use the opportunity to break through the realm, to comprehend, and seize a wisp of opportunity that belonged to the greatest creation in this world. Unfortunately, for Lin Sun, no matter how powerful the sky demon territory was, it was useless for him to break through the realm. The reason was simple. His speed of breaking through the realm was too fast. In just 10 years, he had entered the Nirvana God realm, great perfection from the Nirvana God realm early stage. Although his cultivation had broken through several times, it would be harmful if he forcefully broke through the realm without sufficient accumulation and tempering. It had been half an hour since he arrived at the Sky Demon territory. Lin Sun had already sensed it and judged that even if he started to meditate and cultivate now, it wouldn't be of much help to him to break through the realm in just 3 months. However, to Li Jun, his cultivation started to become restless as soon as he arrived here. Obviously, the Sky Demon Territory's rules had made Li Jun feel the opportunity to prove his Tao. At this time, Li Jun had begun to meditate with his legs crossed, preparing to break through the realm. Lin Sun cast the time seal and covered the area within 1,000 miles. In this way, even if enemies came, they wouldn't be able to disturb Li Jun. After thinking for a long time, Lin Sun finally made a decision and said, "Senior, I'll leave 4 doppelgangers here to protect you." Li Jun, who was meditating, opened his eyes and asked in surprise, "Where are you going?" "I'll fight for more opportunities for Senior." "Senior, you don't have to worry about me. You just need to concentrate on your cultivation and prepare for your breakthrough." As Lin Sun spoke, he left the other 4 Taoist forms except the Black Water Taoist form and left directly. Li Jun had no time to stop him. She didn't even know what Lin Sun meant by fighting for more opportunities. After a short while, Li Jun shook his head, took a deep breath, discarded all distracting thoughts, and sat down to cultivate once more. Lin Sun walked between heaven and earth. Compared to the Earth Demon territory, the Sky Demon territory's territory was limited. According to the information, this territory was about 10 million miles wide, and the border of the territory was covered by the rules of the world like a barrier. 3 months later, the domain barrier surrounding the Heavenly Demon region would disappear. At that time, the cultivators within the Sky Devil domain would be teleported out of the Sky Devil domain. Now, Lin Sun had given up the idea of proving Tao and breaking the realm, but he would not be so indifferent. What he needed to do at the moment was to find his opponent in the shortest time and do everything possible to prevent him from proving Tao and breaking the realm. If possible, Lin Sun would not hesitate to suppress him. All in all, he couldn't let him break the realm so easily in any case. Just half a day later, Lin Sun stopped in the void. There seemed to be nothing in the far distance, but in his spiritual awareness, he felt a trace of almost invisible power of prohibition, which was extremely mysterious and faintly surging with the breath of order. If Lin Sun was not a Taoist tattoo master himself, it would be difficult for him to detect it. He restrained his breath and quietly rushed forward. After a while, Lin Sun looked at a black and lonely mountain. The mysterious power of prohibition, which was almost invisible, covered the mountain like a thin veil. After a brief look, Lin Sun found that this formation was also exquisite. While covering the breath, it also had an extremely amazing lethality. If he tried to break it by force, he would be bombarded by a kind of 9th-grade power of the heaven rank contained in the prohibition. However, it was not difficult for Lin Sun to crack it. However, when he was about to make a move, he stopped. He suddenly realized a problem. At present, in the Heavenly Demon region, there were only 4 opponents, Song Fufeng and Hua Xiao of the Witchcraft sect, Wen Xiaoshui of the Zen sect, and Yuan Changtian. In addition, participants such as Ji Shanhai and Moon in the Well of the Spirit sect were all in alliance with him. Under such circumstances, whether it was Song Fufeng or Wen Xiaoshui, wouldn't they worry about being disturbed by others and breaking the realm? The prohibition formation in front of him might be able to block most of the Nirvana realm in the world, but in the Heavenly Demon region, it couldn't stop the destruction of a few people. So, why did the opponent make such a superfluous move and set up such a formation? After thinking for a moment, Lin Sun quietly retreated. He stood in the sky and looked down. Suddenly, he had a panoramic view of the nearby mountains and rivers. Soon, a trace of enlightenment flashed in his eyes. This place should be just a cover, deliberately set up. Once someone broke in, it would cause a great movement so that the person who set up the formation would sense it immediately. And the person who set up the formation was very likely not in this formation at all. After thinking for a while, Lin Sun began to deduce. Before long, he looked at a place far away. It was a barren plain, and there was no place to hide traces at all. But Lin Sun thought of something. The more ordinary a place was, the easier it was to be ignored. And the distance from the plain to this mountain was not far. Once something happened near this mountain, he could be alerted at once. Thinking of this, Lin Sun left the black water Taoist here, took off the green gourd at his waist, and handed it to the black water Taoist. His main body converged all of its aura and approached the plane. He didn't sense it with his divine awareness, because it would also alarm the black water Taoist. When he arrived near the plane, Lin Sun stopped immediately. At the same time, the black water Taoist in the distance suddenly waved his sleeves, and the sky was full of Taoist light pouring down like the nine heavens galaxy, bombarding the mountain. Boom! There was a sudden violent turbulence around the mountain. Countless restrictive power turned into symbols, and the violent order turned into dazzling thunder and lightning. The nearby mountains and rivers shook with it. Almost at the same time, in the depths of the barren plain, a cluster of grass quietly left a gap, and a flowing light quietly swept out from it, turning into a thin figure. It was when Xiao Shui in a blue robe, handsome as jade, when he saw Lin Sun bombarding the restrictive formation of the mountain in the distance, when Xiao Shui couldn't help showing a touch of coldness between his eyebrows. He had expected that it wouldn't be too peaceful when he was about to break through the realm. But he never thought that Lin Sun would come to him just after he entered the heavenly demon region for half a day. Obviously, Lin Sun intended to take this opportunity to destroy his great plan of breaking through the realm. Fortunately, he had taken precautions and set up a misleading formation. After thinking for a moment, when Xiao Shui didn't know what secret method he used, all the breath on his body disappeared quietly, and his figure became almost transparent. He looked at the distant mountain and approached, holding the dark Jiu Huang halberd in his hand. When Lin Sun, who was hiding in the dark and motionless, saw this scene, he couldn't help but have a strange look in his eyes. Did this guy still intend to sneak attack? Interesting, but halfway, when Xiao Shui stopped again. He seemed to be a little hesitant, and he seemed to notice something wrong. But soon, he moved forward again. Obviously, he finally made up his mind to attack Lin Sun, until he was thousands of feet away when Xiao Shui suddenly moved in the air and came under the sky in an instant. What was faster than him was the Jiu Huang halberd in his hand. Whoosh! The bright blade with monstrous killing intent was chopped out by Wen Xiao Shui with extreme force. It was no exaggeration to say that this was definitely the peak of Wen Xiao Shui's attack. It integrated his cultivation and talent power, and was the strongest manifestation of his lifelong cultivation. It was a fatal blow when he didn't move. Wen Xiao Shui was sure that even a transcendent realm figure would be seriously injured or even killed by this blow, let alone Lin Sun. However, at the moment when he made his move, Lin Sun, who had been attacking the restriction of the mountain, suddenly turned around, pinched his palm and fingers, and smashed out fiercely. This seal was also the extreme embodiment of Lin Sun's cultivation, without any reservation. Clang! The palm print collided with the Jiu Huang halberd, and the terrifying and boundless force made the Jiu Huang halberd wail and shake violently. When Xiao Shui's figure seemed to be hit by an ancient mountain, and he was shaken back fiercely. He coughed up a mouthful of blood. He was fooled. His face changed immediately. Lin Sun's reaction at the moment was not a hasty counterattack, but a full-strength blow that had been accumulated for a long time. Wen Xiao Shui turned around and was about to escape. Clang! A divine sword that was as majestic and heavy as the boundless earth swept out from the green gourd at the waist of Hai Shuho and slashed down. The speed was so fast that Wen Xiao Shui had no time to dodge. At the same time, a strong sense of danger surged in Wen Xiao Shui's heart. Without hesitation, he used the sky-stealing skill. Bang! His figure disappeared like a bubble. The next moment, in the void far away, when Xiao Shui's figure appeared with a livid face. Taoism Peer Lin, do you hate me so much? Lin Sun, Hai Shou, said indifferently. Nonsense, if I don't hate you, why would I come here? When Xiao Shui took a breath, suppressed his anger, and said with a smile, Unfortunately, you failed after all. But I'm afraid you dare not use the sky-stealing skill again. Hai Shu also laughed. When Xiao Shui's eyes narrowed, and he seemed to understand something, he said with a gloomy look, Miss Shanhai even told you such a secret. But what if you know it? At this moment, you have no chance to stop me. In the end, when Xiao Shui laughed up to the sky, shook his head pretentiously, and turned away. However, as soon as he turned around, the smile on his face froze, and his pupils suddenly dilated. In his sight, Lin Sun rushed to him with abyssal sword tripod. P.S. Here's to Awadara, the chief of Haisha. Of course, it was impossible to add only one chapter for the new chief, and he would continue to add chapters tomorrow. If you have a monthly ticket, don't hide it. Please smash it. Chapter 2958. That was Lin Sun's doppelganger. It was a bait. This thought flashed through in Xiao Shui's mind as he instinctively waved the 9 wilds halberd. Lin Sun rushed over with the sword tripod. It was so sudden and fast that he had no time to dodge or use other treasures. He could only passively block it. When Xiao Shui was, after all, extraordinary, under the stimulation of extreme danger, he burst out with unprecedented potential. Boom! His thin figure was like a volcano that suddenly erupted. Countless mysterious diagrams of the Great Path emerged from the 9 wilds halberd in his hand. The clear sound was like a tide, surging through the sky. However, in just a moment, when Xiao Shui's expression changed completely. Clang! In the ear-piercing sound, the 9 wilds halberd was smashed away, wailing violently. When Xiao Shui's hand holding the 9 wilds halberd exploded, blood splashing everywhere. Then, as the abyssal sword tripod smashed down, the armor covering Wen Xiao Shui's body exploded like fragile glass. Boom! When the abyssal sword tripod smashed on his body, Wen Xiao Shui's vision went black. His body was comparable to the sharp blade of a divine weapon, but at this moment, his skin and bones were broken. His whole body was torn apart with a bang, and blood poured out like rain. Only his spirit escaped at the critical moment, but it was caught in Lin Sun's hand. One blow, shattering the Taoist body of a divine son and capturing his spirit alive. This domineering and bloody scene made Wen Xiao Shui's spirit scream in horror. In the past, he was as handsome as jade, calm and composed. No matter how many changes he encountered, he could quickly calm down and resolve them. But now he was out of control. Lin Sun's unparalleled blow not only shattered his Taoist body, but also his fighting spirit. At this moment, when Xiao Shui finally realized how lucky it was to be able to escape after the last sneak attack. Because in a real head-on confrontation, a divine son like him, who was proud of himself, seemed too weak. After a while, when Xiao Shui's spirit finally calmed down, he stared at Lin Sun and said, "Why don't you kill me? Are you afraid of revenge?" His voice was hoarse. "You're still useful." Lin Sun looked very calm. "For example, if there is any accident after leaving the magic territory, I can take you as a hostage, can't I?" When Xiao Shui had a complex look in his eyes, giving him a taste of his own medicine. Fellow Taoist Lin is very skilled. He calmed down and seemed to realize that at least he wouldn't die here. Lin Sun said, "I can't help it. I learned it from you. Last time you attacked me and threatened me with Elder Li Zhen's life. This time I can only return the favor." When Xiao Shui snickered, "You don't have to hide it. You're doing this because you know that you won't be able to prove your Tao and break through within 3 months, but you're worried that others will take revenge on you after you've proven your Tao and broken through. So, you made the first move to gain the upper hand." Lin Sun praised Smart Man. The smile on Wen Xiao Shui's face vanished, and a wisp of disappointment appeared on his face as he let out a long sigh. No matter how smart you are, it's all in vain. In the face of absolute strength, all schemes and tricks are merely small tricks that can't withstand a single blow. I understood that a long time ago, but I never would have guessed that the power of deathless paragons actually existed. At the end of his words, his voice was filled with loss and bitterness. Lin Sun's blow just now destroyed his fighting spirit and subverted his cognition. It also made him deeply realize how terrible Lin Sun was with the power of deathless paragons. Wen Xiaoshui was even sure that if he hadn't trapped Lin Sun with the seal of heaven first, and then decisively used the sky-stealing method to avoid a head-on conflict with Lin Sun last time, he would have been suppressed by Lin Sun at that time. Wen Xiaoshui seemed to have completely accepted the fate at the moment and said calmly, "If I'm right, you're going to deal with Song Fufeng next, right?" "Yes." Lin Sun nodded. "After Song Fufeng and I are suppressed, only Yuan Tian is a threat to you. But after all, he comes from Yuan's sect like you. However, I'm afraid you won't do anything to him," Wen Xiaoshui said. "And if he knows that Song Fufeng and I are suppressed, he will not dare to offend you. However, it's already impossible for him to obtain the greatest fortune in this world." Lin Sun asked why. "With Ji Shanhai, Yuan Tian will never be able to snatch it. What's more, in the current situation, there's not only Ji Shanhai, but also Elder Li Zhen, your senior brother Jing Zhongyue, and the participants of the spirit sect." When Xiao Shui said, "Yuan Tian will have no choice but to swallow his anger unless he wants to die," Lin Sun stared at him for a moment and sighed. "You're really a smart man." When Xiao Shui looked gloomy and remained silent, he finally understood that Wang Juehuan and the others were right. At the beginning of the Immortal Tao battle, they should have exhausted all means to kill this person. After all, Lin Sun was only at the early stage of Nirvana realm at that time, far from being as powerful as he was now. Unfortunately, it was too late to say that now. In the end, Lin Sun suppressed Wen Xiaoshui. After collecting the spoils, Lin Sun couldn't help but be stunned. As the divine son of the one clan of the Eternal God clan in the ninth heaven, Wen Xiaoshui's wealth amazed Lin Sun. There were more than 2,300 Earth rank order forces and 89 Heaven rank order forces. Among them, there was a complete 9th rank Heaven rank order force, 5 Divine rank order fragments, and an eternal herb that was as red as jade with bright red leaves. There was no doubt that this was all the order forces that Wen Xiaoshui and the 4 Zen masters had collected in the 10 devil territories in the past 10 years. The reason why they hadn't used them was that they didn't need them at all with their cultivation. But now it all belonged to Lin Sun. What attracted Lin Sun's attention the most was the eternal herb that was as red as jade. It was shaped like a small tree that was half a foot tall, and its stem and branches were branded with the aura of the rules of order, as if it could exist forever. This was the first time Lin Sun had seen an eternal herb, and his eyes couldn't help but wander. After looking at it for a long time, Lin Sun carefully put away the herb. In addition to these, Wen Xiaoshui also had a dazzling array of treasures on him. The 9 Wild Halberd was an amazing divine weapon that was filled with the aura of time. The other treasures were also peerless in the world, such as the Jade Talisman branded with the power of Dharma, the Formation Plate engraved with the aura of the Taboo, and so on. After looking through these treasures one by one, Lin Sun secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, he had suppressed Wen Xiaoshui with a blow just now. Otherwise, if he had been given a chance to breathe, he would have escaped again with the many treasures on him. Of course, these treasures belonged to Lin Sun now. After tidying up everything, Lin Sun didn't delay and set out on his journey again. This was the first day he entered the heavenly devil territory, and he had to find Song Fufeng and Hua Xiao as soon as possible. Otherwise, the longer it took, the more likely it was for them to prove their Tao and break through the realm. 2 days later, a divine arrow cut through the sky, dragging a dazzling and blazing light as it blasted into a canyon. Boom! Amidst the earth-shattering collision, countless taboo auras of order emerged around the canyon and dissolved the power of this divine arrow. In the canyon, Song Fufeng's eyes were cold as he said, "Moon in the well, you can't break the defense of this place with just this little trick." He was very calm and had a kind of restrained self-confidence. Today was the critical moment for him to prove his Tao and break through the realm. But he was disturbed by Moon in the Well, who tried to destroy his opportunity to prove his Tao. In the distance of a canyon, Moon in the Well stood in the void with a bright smile on his angular face and said, "Today, I will break through this canyon." As he spoke, he took a deep breath, and the muscles all over his body bulged. The horrible lights surged, making his figure suddenly become extremely bright and dazzling. He pulled up the black bow in his hand and put an arrow on the bowstring. As he exerted his strength, the whole bow was pulled to the fullest and pointed to the distant canyon. Buzz! Countless strands of silver electric arcs fluttered on the black bow, and the 2-foot-long, thumb-thick divine arrow was filled with palpitating black light. The clear and high-pitched sound resounded through the world. Boom! When Moon in the Well shot out this long-prepared arrow, at that moment, there seemed to be a light that tore the eternal darkness. The mountains and rivers were dim, and the world lost its color. No words could describe the domineering power of this arrow. It was like a blow from a god that could destroy the world. There was a loud explosion around the canyon, and the rolling torrent of destruction spread out like a hurricane. Everywhere it passed, the mountains, rivers, grass, and rocks in the nearby area were instantly burned into ashes and disappeared. The scene was simply horrifying. However, when the smoke and dust dispersed, the canyon was still safe and sound. Only the restriction power that covered the canyon had become much dimmer. In the canyon, Song Fufeng could not help but sneer and said, "I want to see how you are going to break through this place today." With a flick of his sleeve, an entire 3,600 apricot yellow little flags flashed out, and they descended densely into different areas of the gorge. Every single apricot yellow little flag was inscribed with profound and obscure formation diagrams, and they formed layer upon layer of strange and dazzling phenomena that faintly coiled with the aura of order. When these apricot yellow flags resonated with each other, they instantly formed a layer of golden light screen. It was like a big golden bowl that covered the entire canyon. The feeling it gave off could only be described in 4 words: immovable and indestructible. After doing all this, he no longer cared about Moon in the Well outside the canyon and sat cross-legged on a 9-foot-high platform. The platform was like a lotus, and it was divided into 9 layers. Every layer emitted a mysterious divine light that was colorful. 9 Extremes platform. It was a treasure of the eternal god race's Song clan. When meditating on it, it could dispel all external demonic attacks. It could also allow one's mind to harmonize with the path, allowing one to sense the opportunity to break through in the shortest amount of time possible. Most importantly, the 9 Extremes platform's defense was extremely shocking as well. It could even block a Transcendent Realms attack. "Hua Xiao, come and protect me," ordered Song Fufeng. Hua Xiao accepted the order solemnly. Outside the canyon, Moon in the Well's expression became slightly serious. Song Fufeng had set up too many defenses in the canyon. Layers of restrictions were stacked on top of each other, and every restriction was peerless. It was indeed difficult to break through it in a short amount of time. However, if they couldn't break through the defenses in a short amount of time, once Song Fufeng successfully broke through, this operation was undoubtedly a failure. "It seems like I have no choice but to risk my life," Moon in the Well's heart murmured. His eyes gradually became firm and sharp like an arrow. Chapter 29:59. Boom, boom, boom. Numerous dazzling divine arrows tore through the sky like divine rainbows descending from the 9 heavens, and they fell densely on the canyon. Terrifying and boundless divine radiance splashed and exploded, and the brilliance was dazzling as it covered the heavens and the earth. Moon in Well drew his bow like lightning, and he shot his arrows like the wind. He released all his attainments in the Tao of archery at this moment. He didn't hold back at all. For a time, the rumbling was like a thunderclap, and the surrounding 500 kilometers showed signs of collapse and destruction. On the other hand, Layer after layer of peerless divine restrictions in the surroundings of the gorge were being broken apart layer by layer under the attacks of this violent storm, and they ceaselessly spread out. Until 15 minutes later, Hua Xiao's face was filled with killing intent in the canyon. He had already sensed that if this situation continued, the restrictions around the canyon would be completely destroyed. The power of the Tao of archery emphasizes on killing in one shot, but he is so stupid as to act rashly here. If I'm not wrong, his physical strength has been greatly exhausted, and he won't be able to hold on for long. Song Fufeng, who was sitting cross-legged on the 9 Extreme Tao platform, said coldly, "My lord, why don't I take this chance to go out and kill him?" Hua Xiao was filled with killing intent. The shaman cult saw Minuscule Mountain as their mortal enemy, and now that Moon and Well had come and attacked them, Hua Xiao was filled with anger. Wait a little longer. Song Fufeng also had a trace of anger in his heart. During the process of confirming one's Tao, the greatest taboo was to be disturbed by others. Although he could sever all senses and concentrate on cultivating, although he could cut off all senses and focus on cultivation, Moon and Well was still outside the canyon, and he was still worried. He couldn't focus on proving his Tao, or else it would be extremely dangerous if an accident occurred. "My lord, how long more do we have to wait?" Hua Xiao asked. Although Moon and Well is the successor of Minuscule Mountain, he is now a spirit lord of the shaman cult. It seems like he is acting alone this time, but there might be other helpers nearby. Song Fufeng's eyes flickered. Previously, he had been hiding in the canyon because he was worried that Moon and Well was not the only one who came to disturb his breakthrough. Rumble. As they conversed, Moon and Well was still attacking. Arrow after arrow whistled through the air, and the restrictions around the canyon shook violently. Not long after, only a layer of golden light barrier was left. This caused Hua Xiao to become anxious in his heart, and he said, "My lord, we can't wait any longer." At this moment, in Song Fufeng's vision, Moon and Well, who was outside the canyon, suddenly kept his bow in arrow and turned to retreat. "Go, bring his head back to me." Song Fufeng was decisive. "Yes." When he agreed, Hua Xiao had already transformed into a stream of light and charged out of the canyon at the first possible moment. "Moon in the Well, where are you going?" Hua Xiao shouted out explosively. His figure was robust and peerlessly ferocious. As soon as he charged out, he held a bone spear in his hand as he charged explosively towards Moon and Well in a peerlessly overbearing manner. Moon in the Well suddenly turned around, a green dagger already appearing in his hand, and met the attack head-on. Clang! The dagger and the spear collided, and a violent force spread out. Wakatsuki retreated a few steps, but he grinned and said, "Idiot, do you know why I turned around and left?" Hua Xiao waved his white-boned spear and laughed sinisterly. "Of course it's because your cultivation is exhausted and you can't hold on anymore otherwise." Just as he said that, a chill ran down his spine, and he immediately realized that something was wrong. Boom! He moved horizontally and dodged it the first time, but he was slapped by a big hand halfway, and his whole body flew out fiercely. His armor burst, and many bones were broken. He looked horrified, and a tall figure appeared in his sight. It was Lin Sun. Hua Xiao couldn't believe it. How could Lin Sun be hiding nearby? In the canyon, when he saw this scene, Song Fufeng's face also darkened. There was an ambush. This was not out of his expectation, but he didn't expect that the ambush nearby would be Lin Sun. "When we first met, didn't you clamor about wanting to challenge me? And what did you say? You promised not to kill me?" Lin Sun looked at Hua Xiao coldly. As early as a quarter of an hour ago, he had arrived and saw Moon in the Well, who was bombarding the barrier of the canyon. Through the sound transmission, he also learned that Moon in the Well was here to prevent Song Fufeng from proving Tao and breaking through the realm. This happened to coincide with Lin Sun's idea. So the two secretly cooperated and successfully lured Hua Xiao out at this moment. I didn't expect the successor of Fong Siyuan to be so despicable. Hua Xiao roared, and his figure rushed up. He didn't choose to fight head-on, but fled towards the canyon. Lin Sun suddenly laughed. A sword formation that was formed from sword chi surged out in an overwhelming manner, enveloping down from the sky. "Master, save me." Hua Zhao's face changed dramatically, and he shouted for help. He naturally wouldn't sit still and wait for death. He waved his spear and tried his best to resist. Boom! The sword rain fell from the sky, submerging the world. Hua Zhao's resistance was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. His figure was instantly smashed by the white sword rain, and blood mist filled the air. From beginning to end, Song Fu Feng, who was hiding in the distant canyon, had no intention to help. However, his face was already gloomy. Taking a deep breath, Song Fu Feng said in a deep voice, "Lin Sun, you should know that I have never regarded you as an enemy from beginning to end. Why do you force me? If I let you prove Tao in Transcendent Realm, I'm afraid you will force me too, right?" As Lin Sun spoke, he had already stepped towards the canyon. "Senior brother, take a rest. Leave it to me." "All right." Moon and Well happily sat cross-legged on the ground. Seeing this, Song Fu Feng's eyelids twitched, and he said, "So, there's no turning back for today's matter?" What answered him was the abyssal sword cauldron that Lin Sun casually took out. Boom! The sword cauldron was like an ancient divine mountain, wrapped in billions of lights, smashing the void and smashing down. The energy of the restriction that was like an inverted golden bowl in the surroundings of the gorge instantly emanated deafening explosions, and it shook violently without end. Song Fu Feng stood up from a Nine Extremes lotus platform. His clothes were fluttering, and his eyes were surging with terrifying divine flames. He realized that a battle was inevitable. Boom! The sword cauldron smashed down again, and the golden restriction power that covered the canyon shattered. The 3,600 apricot yellow flags scattered in the canyon also exploded and turned into powder. At the same time, the Nine Extremes platform under Song Fu Feng's feet suddenly transformed into a colorful giant sword, which he held in his hand. His aura changed abruptly, and he revealed a confident and invincible demeanor. He was lofty like an abyss, and his aura shot into the 9 heavens and 10 earths. "Lin Sun, you are indeed very powerful. No wonder you're so overbearing and confident. But if you want to defeat me, I'm afraid it's far from enough." Song Fu Feng's expression was indifferent. Strands of sparkling and translucent fire law circulated around his body, like a monarch, with an aura that could swallow mountains and rivers. Different from when Xiao Shui, when facing Lin Sun, Song Fu Feng was disdainful and confident, displaying a completely different style. "Is that so?" Lin Sun's eyes were cold. He kept the abyssal sword cauldron and stretched his body. "Then let's give it a try. You're not going to use your treasure? You're really arrogant." Song Fu Feng frowned slightly, and killing intent flashed in his eyes. "Then let's give it a try." Finishing his words, a wave that was several times stronger than before surged out of his body. He stood in the air like a divine pillar that supported the heavens. The sea of clouds within 1,000 miles turned into a giant cloud whirlpool with him as the center. He stood in the center of the whirlpool like a god. Clang, clang, clang. Dense sword cries resounded, and the multicolored sword in Song Fu Feng's hand suddenly turned into 9 flying swords. Every single one of them had a different aura and charm. The Nine Extremes Dao platform is the divine treasure of the Song clan. People only know that it has immeasurable effects on cultivation, but they don't know that its true power is used in battle. Buzz! Song Fu Feng flicked his finger lightly. The 9 flying swords vibrated violently at the same time. 9 monstrous sword chi soared into the sky and pierced through the world. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, yin and yang. 9 different kinds of sword chi turned into immortal laws and surrounded Song Fu Feng. Lin Sun's eyes were filled with surprise. The Nine Extremes Dao platform was formed by 9 different kinds of order energy. They floated in the void, and the order energy intertwined with each other. 9 kinds of heaven rank order energy had turned into 9 flying swords. Without a doubt, this was where Song Fu Feng's confidence came from. "Go!" Song Fu Feng spat out a word. He flicked his finger. The 9 flying swords in front of him suddenly let out a roar and rushed out like 9 divine rainbows. The sword hum was like a tide. The sword light shone brightly in the sky. This kind of power was shocking. When the 9 swords slashed out, heaven and earth were turned upside down, and the void was in chaos. In the twinkling of an eye, Lin Sun, as well as the space around him, was frozen. The 9 kinds of heaven rank order energy pressed together and integrated into the sword chi. That kind of power was terrifying to the extreme. Moon in the Well, who was meditating in the distance, couldn't help but raise his head in surprise. This level of killing power could even threaten a transcendent realm figure. After all, it was controlling the 9 kinds of order energy to kill the enemy. It was extremely abnormal. But in the next moment, an incredible scene happened. When the 9 flying swords hit Lin Sun's body, it was like hitting an iron plate, making a squeaking sound. On the surface of Lin Sun's body, the obscure light flowed and slowly turned into a deep abyss, shrouding him. It was deep and mysterious, like chaos, with all kinds of profound truths floating in it. This was his immortal law, condensed from the Nirvana order. Until now, as he refined a lot of order energy, his immortal law had already transformed to an incredible level. Although the 9 flying swords were terrifying, they were all blocked outside of Lin Sun's body. How is this possible? When seeing this scene, not only Moon in the Well, but even Song Fu Feng was shocked. His expression changed, and he almost couldn't believe his eyes. The attack that could threaten the transcendent realm didn't even hurt a hair on Lin Sun's body. This was simply incredible. Song Fu Feng had never seen this kind of terrifying power from anyone. He couldn't imagine how there could be such incredible power in the Nirvana realm. It was as if it was unshakable and unsurpassable. Could this be the power of the Immortal Supreme? Song Fu Feng was horrified. P.S. Continue to update tonight.